It is that time of year. The ALGS is ramping up in the most spectacular of ways, and we just got 2 more official match days until we are figuring out who's going to make it to our regional final and who might steal the chance to make it to LAN, and who, of course, will be left behind. My name is Rain Day. I am your host here at the ALGS Match Day 8 for EMEA, and I cannot wait to kick off the action. The players are excited. You, the fans, I'm sure, are excited. It's great to see you again. And of course, I got some people with me who are excited as well. Speaking of, Spider Tiff, welcome back to the broadcast. I know you're excited for a great day, Apex.
I am thrilled for a great day of Apex. You mentioned it, 2 regular season match days left, and Group C gets to go back to back this weekend. And if I get to wake up in the morning knowing there's going to be ALGS on Saturday and Sunday with a plethora of regions, I'm ready.
I'm ready too. And you know, when we wake up and know there's ALGS, we're like, oh crap, it's call time in 5 minutes. That's what we have to do. But tomorrow I'm going to sit back and relax. Today we're putting the work in alongside my man Dia, who is here for the call, for the analysis. Dia, this is an important day. It cannot be understated.
Absolutely not, as this is the last match day for anybody coming out of Group A. A lot's on the line for those that have been struggling to keep themselves inside the top 10 because so many from Group C have the chance to overcome that. So I think you've put it perfectly, Rain Day. I'm very excited to see what happens today because there is so much that each of these teams have to fight for, whether it's for playoffs, into regionals, or against relegation.
I think you both laid the story out really well. 2 more match days for Group C, so they can make up some distance. Group A and Group B, over this day and tomorrow, will have their last match days. So they've got to make sure they put it all out and leave it on the field. However, with the standings here, as we show you a little bit of it, I want to start this conversation on the magic number because we did some speculation, and this is, to be clear, totally speculation. But based on last season, based on this season, if you hit about 77 points, Tiff, it feels pretty good that you'll be able to be in that top 10.
Yeah, and 77 is that number for Split 2. I looked back at Split 1, the final qualification from EMEA. That threshold was 72 points. So you have to look at the points and associated with that. Start a fight. They're in 10th place. Now, granted, the top 10 will move on to the LAN playoff Split 2. 55 points. 58 for Element 6. That last match day performance from E6 bringing in kind of really helped solidify that. But if you're finding yourself in that bubble from 8th to maybe 13th place, you have to be extremely consistent this week, especially if you're in Group A.
And that's a great point. Dia, keeping that 77 speculative number in mind as we head to the bottom of the 10 and 20, you know, you look at these teams now who have to say, we got some work to do.
Yeah, especially if you're looking at teams, I'd say like Phoenix Legacy, like Aurora, like Game and Gladiators, that we're expecting to be jumping up there. FUT actually are also right on the bubble as well. We called out Start a Fight, and they are essentially tied for 10th right now. So there's going to be a lot of stakes during this middle of the pack, but as we move down and we look at B2, Aurora, and Passion, they're going to be competing with those squads that are in 21st to 30th place, who just want to stay in the Pro League at this point.
Yeah, and you could kind of see it here because let's say you win twice. These points are given on a day. You might get 66 on the day, but that means you get first place and you get 25 points. So if you do that twice in Hero's position, it's still looking grim because that's just 65, and they've got to win 2 days in a row. So a lot of people are hoping some people in front make mistakes and also that we can have some knockout games. But of course, let's look at our participants, of course, for this afternoon, because, you know, this is going to set up our playoff picture. In fact, let's run to that quickly before we get into today to make it even clearer for you all at home. When you look at the playoffs, this is currently how it stands if it were to end today. Tiff, any surprises here for you?
Ooh, this is really challenging for me to say because you look at Aurora, Passion, teams that are facing that potential relegation. You do not want to have to fight your way through those qualifiers. It's essentially a gauntlet and anything can happen. And to prolong that journey, you want to get yourself off that bubble, specifically around relegation, but you also think about the regional finals. If you can stay in that top 20, there is still a potential chance that you have the ability to qualify to LAN, even if your points don't really add up to that top 10 threshold. But for teams like Jailings, right, coming in from Group C in 6th place, if they perform well today and tomorrow and just be consistent. I'm talking top fives. They should, in a sense, have sealed their ticket to London.
They certainly should. This is going to set up for an exciting day. What you need to know at home is that everything matters. Maybe unless you're a fan of Alliance, Fire Beavers, Vexed, or Pioneers, they seem like they have done quite a lot so far to put themselves in a pretty cushy position. But anybody else, they have to get their performance on. For today, though, it is going to be Groups A versus C. And that means we have an even more tantalizing picture for this afternoon. Dia, your thoughts on this matchup with A versus C?
I got two big thoughts, and they both interestingly start with V. Vexed and Vortex. Vexed that have been running through lobbies since the split began. When you're in a match day with this team, you have to be careful because all of a sudden things get a lot more aggressive. And the other side of that coin, we have Vortex, who coming out of the Challenger Circuit had one of their best days so far. Actually, their best day so far just last week, where they managed to walk away with a first place finish. Vortex crushed it, and they took a massive leap forward. Let's see how much they can keep that going.
In the same way, too, it is also about teams like Ascend continuing to find rhythm, trying to make sure that they can get to LAN again and be in that position where they were against DSM, and this time win if they are in the fortunate circumstance. So on both sides, there is a lot of story here, but I know there are so many teams to watch. We have to focus on just a few to start the broadcast. Tip, I'm going to lead off with you. Who is your team to watch today?
This was hard to pick because there's a lot of teams on the bubble that I want to find have success here, but mine's gonna be Foot Esports. You have the trio, right? I've been analyzing their drop spots. I've reached out to their team manager, Inc., and I was like, hey, how are the guys feeling today coming into this weekend knowing that they need to have a standout performance? And they are very confident, they're ready. More particularly, Storm Point. That is the map where they feel that they can find the most success, and as long as they stay consistent moving on over to World's Edge, there should be no issues, right? They brought on Harold, the coach. It's been working immensely on surrounding and upgrading their communication and rotation, specifically those micro fights, because I think that's the key to success, right? You have to have strong communication on your team and work on that synergy, because everything that I've been hearing from a lot of the players is that team cohesion is the way to succeed here for that level of consistency. But Dia, I'm curious, who do you have?
Well, Foot were genuinely an interesting choice, and I've actually gone with the team that's tied with them. Start a Fight, who, along with Foot, have some of the most to lose going into today's match day. I am a sucker for stakes, and there certainly are many for Start a Fight today. As they're sitting in 10th, their position in the playoffs, in the regional finals, is still as yet tenuous, especially given that they started this entire season on kind of a rough note. I got to talk to Blast yesterday about the way that the team has improved since then, and a lot of their focus has been on communication, on making sure that they are on the same page and constantly calming. For a team that is so passionate and that has increasingly so much higher expectations going in match day after match day, it's really tempting to lock it all in, to be quiet and play your own game, but that is the downfall, and they know it of Start a Fight, so let's see if they can keep it going. Of course, I'd like to highlight one of their players, Wicked Sick, or as you may know them, Light, who is 8th in overall kills throughout the course of the split, has been playing out of their mind, and currently holds 40% of team damage across the entire roster. Light has been putting up massive numbers, making amazing calls, and again, from my talk with Blast yesterday, has quite a bit of passion to back it all up. But Rain Day, who's your pick for the day?
Well, Dia, Tiff, all good picks, but when danger is rapping at the door, you need to bolt the locks, throw the dresser in front of it, and push with all your might to avoid letting catastrophe in. That is where we are with Aurora, a team who led EMEA last season, but was unfortunately unable to qualify for LAN, get their players to LAN, having qualified in one of the first positions. They then had a sub, and this season they had a handle, and it was redemption, but now they face not even making it in the regular split. They have 2 more days to go, 2 back-to-backs, 1 weekend to see if they can pull out a miracle with this new squad, having added Sunset and lost Maliwan throughout the middle of the season. Can they do it? that is my story that I'll be paying attention to. And if you can see, not just through the words, but in the numbers, they have been a shadow of themselves. Last split at this exact time, they had 76 points. They now have 35. You can see half in terms of kills, and also in terms of kills per match, their average has gone way down. This is something they can address now, but they're running out of time. So let's see if Aurora can do it. Those have been our teams to watch to kick off EMEA Match Day 8. Also to kick off EMEA Match Day 8, it's the maps. The schedule, as usual, for the back half of the season, we've switched it up. We start on Storm Point, we end on World's Edge. And speaking of Storm Point, Tiff, there's an interesting fight we might need to be paying attention to that could determine how today goes.
Yeah, I've been keeping my eye on scrims, which, you know, that goes without saying. Scrims are never exactly like what you're going to see on an ALGS match day, but Ascend and Bitfix have been fighting tooth and nail. It is the battle of barometer. That contest has been so highly dynamic. The last day I saw it on scrims, I believe Ascend lost 3 for 3. So Bitfix Gaming bringing in that new third dia we were talking about, him cracked. It's performing exponentially well.
Yeah, it's funny that you say, you know, this contrasting scrims versus Pro League days because, well, in scrims, Ascend may not be feeling that good. The last time we saw this contest on Pro League, Ascend wiped the floor with Bitfix, and I can't help but wonder how much of an influence the stage is going to have versus the time that these rosters have had to meld over the course of the split.
Ascend is a great story, and they're a team that we followed along with the heartstrings being pulled all last season, and it almost ended in a full success. It was TSM who kind of stole that glory from the heavens, as Mark called. And I think that this Ascend now is a little bit more mature, and they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, just from the way Kashera has been more outspoken with his journey, things that he wants changed, things that he continues to improve on, and kind of resisting any smack talk that's been coming his way for any performance and backing up his team and his teammates. I feel like this is also a potential Ascend story heading into LAN. Today would certainly be a great start, Tiff, for them to continue on that rise and put them in a great position.
Well, it all starts with the battle of barometer and taking down Bitfix Gaming. At this point, Dia mentioned it. Hey, this is some early KP that you could use to buff your scores there on Storm Point. You have 3 matches, 3 easy KP per game if you can just take down Bitfix.
Dia, I want to ask you about this. Last match day, I did some calculating and I realized that we had all of EMEA within 40 points of each other. First through 13th were within 17 points. That's a light victory. That's 12 points. That's a victory in 5 kills. That means almost anybody could have won that day. What does that say about EMEA as a region in your eyes with how close it is to who's taking the top spot?
Yeah, well, one of the things that EMEA has as a strength is that there is a lot of contention for, as you say, the top couple of spots. And there's a lot more parity, especially between those even coming from Challenger Circuit, because they're such students of the game. EMEA teams learn from each other a lot. And I'd say notably, we've talked about Fire Beavers as being this like bygone example that is not mirroring anybody's strategies. For the most part, EMEA is a very flexible region that do have a really good read on each other. And this sort of closeness in the points speaks to exactly that, Rain Day, that they're also very close in their actual strategies and their team fighting ability, and no game day can be written off before it's happened.
Yeah, you know, I think that you mentioned Fire Beavers, and it kind of transcends to another point I want to bring up, which is who's been a great individual performer, not just a team, and pass that along to Tiff, because, you know, Fire Beavers, they're not playing today, but they have been phenomenal over the course of the season. Certainly a few of their players are going to be in this top kill leaderboard for EMEA over this split. But another thing that I want to ask you, and this is off the top of your head, I want to ask you, who's going to be your individual performer that might make the difference today? Is it Kashera?
Personally, Kashera, when I saw him on Crypto, we have seen so many critical moments that he has turned the tide in a game where he knows that it's best to disengage from that fight and work on securing the banners of his teammates and lifting them up. Lately, I've also seen him play a lot of Bangalore and kind of going around. But yeah, I think Kashera has the leadership role and knows what it's going to take. And you mentioned it, you know, when your back is against the wall, moving forward and finding that success. But with this kill leaderboard and the overarching, yeah, of course, we've got the Fire Beavers at the top. Alliance's effect I am so ready to see that on LAN. That is going to be something to behold. And if you're in the audience and you witness something monumental coming out of Alliance, just everything that they've been playing recently, I think it's the team cohesion, your adaptability, and that can come from any team that we witness in A versus C today, B versus C tomorrow. It's adaptability and cohesion.
We missed Effect at LAN. We missed Fire Beavers. We missed Aurora. This season kind of was spelling, let's get the full talent of the ALGS in one place and duke it out to see who will raise that trophy. Now, when EMEA is pretty much handled, you look to North America in a few hours in our next broadcast and you say, what's going to happen with TSM? Our previous winners, we still may be waiting for further in the year to get everybody together. But that's the benefit, Dia. You know, you ebb and flow in terms of your play. What's the key to staying consistent, though, over this weekend? Since Group C has pretty much the most pressure on its back to perform back-to-back, is this a benefit to play as this game is getting ready? Ladies and gentlemen, waiting patiently, we appreciate you to get going. Is this kind of a benefit for Group C to have this back-to-back one weekend where they can just focus and handle their business?
I like to think so, and it wouldn't be every weekend if Group C constantly had to play back-to-back days, because they, unlike other groups, wouldn't perhaps get the chance to adjust. But as we do jump into the first game of the day, thank you, Rain Day. I'm going to grab you, Tiff, and we're going to hop in here to see whether you can start things off on a good note if you are one of these Group C teams, because that's where the benefit really kicks in. Apex is such a momentum and mental-based game that for those teams that do land themselves in the top 10 out of Group C today, we can say that for them, it is unanimously going to be a good thing to be able to jump into tomorrow's matches. For those in the bottom 10, they've got a lot more work to do.
They definitely have work to do, and I think starting off here, we will judge based off the initial map how this day is going to go, because I feel like if you're coming in with your backs against the wall, knowing that you have to lay all of your cards out on the table and perform to the best of your abilities, that is a hard mental to have. You can come in as confident as you want. And I was listening to the Apex podcast just this morning with Nocturnal. It was a great episode, and he was kind of talking about his journey throughout why he thinks XSET is performing so well. Now, granted, that's NA, but I think the mindset aspect was so mission critical that it can apply to literally any player. They just need to make sure that that stays strong, Dia. The mental fortitude will be challenged this weekend. But if you think about other regions, they're playing 12 matches in a single day.
Yeah. It's a lot back-to-back. Very little time to adjust, and constantly looking for these small improvements. A big part of this, of course, is going to be simplifying your game plan from day to day, and we'll see who has that most ease of execution, especially on Stormpoint, a typically more complex map to actually execute on, especially in Season 16, where zones so often are pulling differently, are a little bit more out in the open, and we're starting to see other legends perhaps take to the stage.
Dia, I have to ask you a question, because we were hyping up the Battle of Barometer with Bitfix versus Ascend, but check out where Ascend went. They just landed split at wall with Kashera extending out towards those buildings to the west of High Point, where Outplayed lands in High Point. That's going to be so dynamic for them. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's definitely changing the rotation significantly. I will say that you have transformed your position basically straight up, and so the rotations when you come into the edge of the map aren't going to be that different. This is throwing a wrench into Ascend's plan specifically, though, and Bitfix Gaming have the benefit of having the survey beacon right next to them as well for a little bit of extra information before they leave the POI. What really throws a wrench into Ascend's plans, though, is the fact that they share space with Outplayed.
We may see some early action over by Downed Beast. We saw 2R1C that was kind of taking some shots at a nearby team rotating with the Trident. And something to note here on Stormpoint is a lot of teams electing to play more quick rotate, more zone. I know some teams are even talking about the utilization of Loba to help them with their quick rotate plans. Now, granted, we really don't see Loba too much in comp, but Foot Esports utilizing the IMC Armory, making sure they've got great shields here.
As long as you can make the most use of this area, I call it millage, just slightly north of Cenote Cave, you can grab spider caves that are just off to the western side, get yourself some good shields, and then pop into the IMC armory to make sure the attachments come with it. FUT have a pretty good game plan, especially considering they start next to Vortex Landing Cenote, and fortunately are also very close to the rain that is increasingly pulling towards 2R1C. Not running Seer, not running Catalyst, but running Crypto Watson.
It's a joy to see. We haven't seen much Crypto Watson. I know for the majority of people, if you're going to see Crypto Watson, a lot of it happened with Phoenix Legacy in EMEA, and then you think to other regions like APAC North. That's where I significantly remember that legend composition. But Hiarka electing to play Crypto, they're starting to space out Downed Beast. And if a lot of teams are making their rotation toward the front buildings of Downed Beast, this could be very similar to a zone that we actually called the action on, where Jaylings was kind of playing that back claw, and it even popped up in APAC South last night.
It looks a lot like it, and 2R1C are a team that historically has been right up there with KCP in terms of being able to predict zones regularly. Led by Uchako, they've got the classic all-time duo, but they're getting landed right on by E6, so we're going to take the area underneath Downed Beast. There's a lot of space to share here, but 2R1C are going to get crowded in, and the toughest part of navigating this high ground is keeping it for the long run.
So let's go ahead and chat about what we're seeing specifically with 2R1C electing to take the high ground here at Downed Beast. They don't necessarily have a Loba, so they're not going to be able to have a black market to resupply on things like ammo and heals, but they do have Watson, which will allow them to have the Interceptor pylon, get shields, but Slayers on the Caustic deal?
We saw this being experimented with just last week. Actually, interestingly enough, in the Downed Beast circle, this didn't work especially well for Element 6, but hopefully running it back will give them a little bit of a different look. Caustic's had a bit of a rough split. Hasn't been the controller legend of choice when you want to scan those ring consoles, but defensively, he is a powerhouse, and especially alongside the Crypto, who, again, E6 have chosen to run. It is a Crypto day here in EMEA.
I'm thinking it's a Watson day as well. We're going to different POVs, and we're seeing a lot of Watson, which is bringing me joy, because I saw her face in the season 17 trailer of Arsenal, and she just was so cute. Her fences bring me a lot of joy, but her ability to control space, and especially if you're not leaving your drop spot POI, you don't have to have a lot of shields. That regen from the Interceptor pylon is mission critical for 2R1C.
And I know that I like to talk about strategy analysis, where people are standing, what they can do, but I can appreciate cosmetics. You saw Watson's skin pop up during the Mast event. Oh my god, what an amazing skin. I have been struggling not to purchase that for myself because, oh my lord, like, I am on the verge.
Dia, you predict who's going to win this map right now, and I will buy you that skin.
Oh god, right now? I'm going to go with 2R1C. I'm going. I have to commit, guys. Chat, respect the decision. Help me out here because this is really high stakes for me. Higher stakes than you know. Morningstar's on the rotation and pretty darn high stakes for them as well, especially since Downed Beast is becoming increasingly more crowded. We've got a few teams that have actually opted in towards Checkpoint, though, and that's what's making this rotation so difficult. Among them, Game and Gladiators.
Game and Gladiators needs to have a pop-off performance, and I have to imagine that Hardeki has changed his name to Hardwig in homage of Nicewig, who's probably going to be watch partying ALGS for the next 24 plus hours. I was watching some APAC South with them last night. Obviously, the folks over at Longshot, they kick things off. We saw some really good moments from Dax and Genome, and I get so excited. So I want to give a huge shout out to Moist. I don't think we really got to talk about them too much. They won Split 2 overall for the regular season and will be advancing on to London again.
Going to be a really good look for them, especially given what we saw just last time. That's a good look, though. Good damn! Gets a nice knock with a frag onto Jules. Playing out of this low ground, Kella Gaming do have to find a creative way of finishing off this kill, and there it goes. Rondon being taken down in Game of Drones, now on their last legs.
Game of Drones needs to be incredibly consistent to avoid relegation. No stranger towards qualifiers. I know they'll have no issue coming through there, but you really would like to avoid that if possible. Kella Gaming, another team that came through the qualifiers at the preseason, and they've been performing rather lacklusterly. I feel as if you can get a strong start off. This will be the way. It's like, oh, I already know I'm maybe found myself between 21st to 30th place, but let's go out and have some fun. Let's lay it all out and see just how well we can take fights. But LCDF making their rotation on, as we see these teams moving towards Down Beast, it's going to get incredibly congested, specifically in this area where LCDF is trying to take.
And this is that position that you actually spoke of where we saw the ring end just last week. It's going to be a nice spot to hold for now, although one that is looking increasingly like it won't be part of future zones that should pull a little bit further into the south. 2R1C, nonetheless, have to be aware of this, have to respect now that this is the team that can ruin their game. Lecite de France sit right next to the squad that has the best position in zone, and they know it, so do 2R1C.
Time to bide the time. Thorfinn does have a charge rifle that will allow them to poke, prod, do armor checks, and really hold these choke points and deny rotational abilities from the teams that are looking to maybe walk their way into that zone. So Crypto going to provide a lot of information. Hiarka can essentially use his little iPad drone to scout out the teams that have rotated underneath. Most recently, we saw Element 6 take to the underside of Down Beast. LCDF tried to take some space here on those buildings, but the fencing is impeccable, right? You want to prevent people from being able to walk up on that tail, and you called it, Dia. You said 2R1C, Godspot, going to win this, all on the line with a Watson skin.
Oh my god, like really crossing my fingers for 2R1C. And they're playing things really well, honestly, as I said, keeping their eyes on their back, and have made an interesting swap up. I didn't clock it at the very start of the match, but the ways that they've actually chosen to designate these legends is a little bit unusual for 2R1C, who have given Hiarka the Crypto this time around. Normally the anchor player, normally on something like the Watson. Instead, that's being run by Thorfinn. But one of your squads to watch, back to your squad to watch, FUT, are instead sitting down gatekeeping this southern side of the ring, one that Aurora will have to walk through rather soon.
Well, we know Rain Day is really excited to see just how this fight is going to go. And Bitfix Gaming, they're coming off that uncontested fight at Barometer. It seems that they have claimed that for themselves, a good bang ult, and now a seer exhibit being thrown up for information. But Bitfix really didn't take a lot of damage on that initial push. But with both seer exhibits being expended here, Cracked is going to need to find a good opening so they can keep moving forward.
On the roof we go, one of the more complex buildings to play around, and roof is actually going to be denied. Smoke from Trix keeps Cracked alive, but Bitfix are slowly but surely approaching this one with confidence. Aurora gonna drop down, try and go for the flank. Let's see what Sunset can do as Crack falls.
Sunset able to pick up one. We were talking about Sunset being a little more reserved, but that is the aggression that we needed to have happen. A full Finn onto Cracked and a beautiful Arc Star onto Trix is giving Aurora the upper hand that they needed. Now, in a 3v1 situation, they can play it a little more slowly and make sure, hey, we've got the two. We don't know where Zeraphir is. We know exactly that he has backed off into the ring to try and heal. But at this point, if I'm Bitfix, Dia, what do I need to do? I'm Seer. I've got information. I'm not getting out with my life, and just like that, you're not getting out with your life.
At this point, I mean, we're asking ourselves what they need to do, and it's hopefully plan out a rotation that doesn't include Aurora. We had a lot of questions about this roster coming into the day, what Aurora would show up, but for the start, for their warm-up fight against Bitfix, things are looking pretty good. I also had questions about Vortex walking into today's matches, however, whether they'd be able to replicate the #1 finish that they gave us just last week. And for this specific zone, it's going to be a tall order. FUT sit here watching them make their way past Mill, and even a southern approach from this point will still take Vortex through squads like Vexed.
That is going to be very challenging position of this. Foot Esports, when I was speaking to their manager, very, very comfortable here on Storm Point. They love to play hard edge, and typically that's great. And I was like, do you guys have any issues with taking fights hard edge these days, especially with all the changes that have happened from Season 16, the reclassifications, the denial of information? And they were like, of course it's RNG. Of course, every fight that we approach, we don't necessarily know how it's going to go, especially with the risk of third parties inevitable. They just know that they are confident, and I think that's going to have to be enough for them. You think back to where they were in Split 1, Dia, facing relegation. They just barely snuck into regional finals. This is a completely different dynamic for them, just about to sneak into Split 2 playoffs.
At the very least, they got that willingness to roll the dice that a lot of other teams are lacking on, sometimes not wanting to take that 50-50. Being willing to go for it is a big boon. We take a look at the map now, and an unexpected ring pull will take everybody out of Downed Beast, but Vex to make that first move down to the south and might just find themselves a fight. This is up against Vortex.
Tyler already throwing that rolling thunder out. Unlucky going to fall. So Matafe on the Watson is going to have to assist Tyler in this engagement. Tyler, a mechanically gifted fragger, going to reassess, hit that shield cell. But these digi threats are going to be mission critical, especially coupled with the Bangalore. Now, we were just talking about how the digi threat is no longer in the crafter, but when you are faced yourself in a situation against Foot Esports, against Vortex, and you're last standing for the team, this is where you disengage from the fight and try to play your life. Vortex has already lost out on one, but they are keeping that momentum moving forward.
And the ring's starting to close just now, so Vortex know that they must push forward right into Foot, and unfortunately, it'll take EQ down, it'll take all of Vortex down as Robin bites the dust, and FUT are the last ones laughing as they mow down that mechanically gifted Tyler all on his lonesome.
You know, I was talking about play your life, but he was able to pick up at least one more KP. Now, granted, going out in 17th isn't necessarily the start you were looking for Vex. We know how challenging they can be with pushing that engagement after engagement, and they're scary to fight. You said it in the pre-show, but Foot Esports, they're confident. They're not afraid to go up against any team, especially Vexed.
Yeah, and when you're so used to rolling 50-50s, right? When even your manager is like, yeah, we don't really know if we'll win. You see a third party, you get that extra percentage, you know that Foot are going to be confidently sending it forward. Nightmare, they themselves sat in checkpoint. One of the few squads left to be doing so now have the option whether they take the 50-50, whether they go for the fight, or if they disengage early.
Now, this is going to be really interesting because you think about that choke point that is just south of all the main buildings in Checkpoint. A lot of the teams that have found themselves south of Checkpoint in the buildings are all going to have to filter through the checkpoint. So I'd imagine that all of these teams are going to collapse on one another in just a few minutes. It's going to start with Nightmare. It's going to start with Outplayed, and you've really got to hold on and withstand every bit because this isn't going to just be a third-party situation. We're looking at fourth and potential fifth parties here.
There are 6 whole teams in Checkpoint that all have to find a way out. ANC Outplayed as a duo needing to do this is nearly impossible, but Aurora's going to go down first. That's Game and Gladiators picking up the first blood. ANC Outplayed, now with both doors cracked, have no choice but to go down, and it's just in time that V2 take the fight. Unfortunately, there's that third, even fourth party that you talk about.
Look, this is about to be an all-out brawl. We've got another Seer exhibit going out, and Nightmare Esports from the underside have reached another realm. They are wanting to make a play for the top and eviscerate every team in their line of sight. Now, Fraz trying to find some cheeky angles. Limek able to find some good damage, but not necessarily enough to completely capitalize on. When you have a Dark Veil cutting through the insides of a building, it can make things a little more tantalizing. So 7 going to drop back down, prioritize on charging up that gold shield before going back in. But this is going to give Gaming Gladiators all the time they need to start pushing through.
But nobody has any time. That's the scary thing. Gaming Gladiators, they think about that push and they realize, just as we all should, that this is no longer part of the zone and have to take up to the skies. Nightmare going to be joining right alongside them, and now we gamble as to who actually gets a good place to land in Downed Beast. Everybody going to be looking at this. J-Links from the building, 2R1C from the top, E6 from underneath. And if you think you're safe here, let's see Difference going to come up.
LCDF, J-Lings, these are the teams that called it from the very beginning. They knew they had to take space, and GG, unfortunately, Hardzeki's going to go down, needing to have the Ogre, the last standing for GG. We were asking them to get a strong performance, but unfortunately, their late game rotation will not be met with success. 2R1C at the hands will eliminate them. Start a fight coming in from the back. Your team to watch, but let's turn our attention back to that choke point where all of these teams have made their way on foot. Two Dark Veils splitting it up, and Foot Esports is down to Liffen, trying to hold on, and Totem, they are ready for some action. Arc Stars going out, Dia.
And another Catalyst wall comes up as well. Reply Totem know they have to fight their way out of this corner. Want to be active participants in making their own fate. But swinging around here does expose you to a lot of fire. Passion go down, the Dark Veil drops, and Reply Totem instantly start eating shots from another squad.
44% left to get that cat wall back up for them. They know they're going to need it for the rotation, so hopefully some ultimate accelerants are within their inventory to make utilization of that. But you look at Foot, we're down to a rat, and they have everything cut out for them, but they have been found out by Totem, so easy pickings for them. Now with 7 points already here in game number 1, they are cleaning out everything in this vicinity. But the most issue that they're going to face, Dia, is how are they going to get to the other side? Ult accelerants in hand, that's perfect, but talk about that rotation.
Yeah, it's all about the Catalyst wall, and you called it out. They know as well that the ultimate from Catalyst to just deny lines of sight may actually get them to the bunker on low ground. Start a fight, they've got priority over this topmost bit. The small buildings here, Valcolt gonna come in. Not gonna get hit from the sky, but now, where are you actually trying to land? If we're not using Catalyst walls to make our way into the zone, what on earth are Totem going for?
I'd imagine they're gonna throw it down potentially to cover them at the end, but Startify, your team to watch, they're about to get into some significant third-party action. Let's jump into a quick listen-in presented by WD Black.
Okay, right side is free. Like,
yeah, right side is free, right side is free. Kills on me,
close up here.
Kills on me, kills on me.
Right. Yeah. All you guys,
Go, 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 go.
Look here, really low, really low.
I'm looking.
In the smoke, one died. On the right, left there, another kill.
Chill.
Almost cracked. In the open.
He ran.
Okay, it's fine. Team on the left.
That.
Nice.
Giving that for you.
Can we extend on that, or is it risky?
No. Guys, we play right side of the fence later.
Okay. I'm not playing.
We are just holding. Listen,
yeah,
we are
but
just
they're gonna
holding.
risk him. They're gonna risk him.
It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
We play right side of the fence and we win game.
Yeah. Light.
Listen,
It's
I have
one
no
solo.
cells. No cells. Give me
Okay.
cells.
Okay.
I dropped.
It's one solo.
I need heavy too.
I
Heavy's
also
gonna be
have
easier.
heavy.
No heavy.
Fine.
Can you go there and reinforce it? Reinforce it.
Yes, easy. Yeah.
Listen. There is Sir on my ping. Solo Sir, okay?
Yeah.
Later, when we make sure this team cannot drop us anymore, we look to clear the Sir, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, they are kinda. What the fuck? You got your kill, light, right?
Yeah, I got my kill.
Nice. It's J-Links then. J-Links control all the building.
Yeah.
Light. Yes.
Hey, look at my rock.
Okay.
You can play it on me. You see this? I have a good headline.
Yeah. Guys, chill. Yeah, we win this game.
Yeah, chill.
So what are we doing? Are we hugging the building, or are we just standing?
No, we are playing right. We are playing right. But
Am I gonna use wall?
keep holding here, okay?
Yeah,
I'm playing alone.
left.
On me.
Yeah, holding left, light.
Make sure they can't drop us anymore, and then we move up right side.
Yeah, my traps are still there.
Okay, come. I think we should go now. Clear the Sir.
Do I win
I'm gonna
this?
scan. No. Go wide right. I'm gonna scan him for you.
Okay. They're 3-0. Eagles cancelled.
Scanning.
Go with this guy. Kill him.
Yeah.
Move. Blocking shots.
I can see. Nice.
In front of us,
Hold the whole
in
space.
front of us. Yeah.
I
Kill
can
the team on right side.
hear
We can kill team on right side. No, team right side. Blast. Later you walk up left, wall of the doorway, okay? And reinforce it.
Okay. Yes.
All left side is free for you. All left side is free for you.
Then I'm playing it.
Guys, they're gonna play
On
the
roof,
roof.
on
The
roof,
door
on
is
roof.
gonna...
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
on roof
they're
already. They're already on roof.
Yeah, it's fine. We need to get the team on roof killed. Because we can't drain first that if they're on roof.
No, I can win it off the win, then do it. I can win it off and then do it.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. We have still
When
time.
Jones on our ass, I'll do it.
Listen, spam. If you have spam nades and the spam Qs on the fucking. Give me one.
I'm giving Q1 light on the... Yeah.
Try to kill the team on roof.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it soon, I think. I'm gonna do it soon,
They'll
okay?
fight each other, yeah. But we also need to use this wall, so we will like. So it's good for us also to play.
Yeah, I know how to do it.
You should do it soon.
I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna do it now.
Yeah. And go reinforce.
Wait, there's a zero. I don't know if I can.
Okay. I'm tilting also.
I'm doing it. I reinforced it. Running back.
Look up. Don't shoot up. Play up. Crouch.
Burning. 60 on 2. They're hitting me. I'm burning.
Shoot fucking fuel. They will fight. Just chill. One HP share.
What's that 100? No.
Heard from that.
No way. How are they not fighting?
I don't know how we could win.
Dia, the solo of Totem. The solo on the roof that Start a Fight was so aware of the entire time. We need to take down the team on the roof. But can we talk about the utilization of the Dark Veil and reinforcing the door? Because my jaw dropped.
Yeah, everybody there super aware of their cooldowns, and Start a Fight, despite the fact that they didn't win the game, got darn close, and it was all off of, as we said, really great identification of what they could do to ruin the other team's game the most. And that's something that you see very rarely, is somebody going, not just what can I do that's best for me, but what's worst for you.
That's pretty toxic, Dia, but I love it. I'd love to bring Rain Day back in to hear your thoughts on it, because I can imagine, like me, your jaw also dropped.
It was. I didn't appreciate the segue about ruining games and then going to a solo full picture visual of me, but Tiff, take a break, and I'll work this out with Dia in a second. Great cast and call. Dia, to me, this was a story about Catalyst and how this type of character has transcended their approach into the meta in a way that we didn't necessarily expect would be this impactful. And you could see it right there in that end game. That was hard to get by. I'm surprised any of those teams survived for as long as they did, because that was a terrible situation.
Yeah, being able to manufacture cover is not something that many legends have. Even people like Newcastle Rampart, who we've seen crop up every once in a while, don't have exactly the same oomph as Catalyst, because it's not as flexible. It has to be right on top of them. It's destructible, and while Catalyst can't block damage, Catalyst can block people way more effectively.
Well, the way you talk about it, too, and I think anyone who's played Apex knows this, Bangalore doesn't block damage with her smokes, but in a way she does, because you're not encouraged to spray bullets into a place you don't know what's behind it. Seer ults weren't available at that time. The compositions didn't allow for a lot of vision from those Catalyst walls. So it was really a matter of, let's spray and pray and let's just wait this thing out. Luckily, the team inside also were able to do it, and it was a good approach from Blast and Squad, who had, I think, 6 to 7 kills in that game. So they can't be really mad at it, but ultimately the third party at the top, Reply Totem, ends up finding a way. And despite those three teams doing really well, I do just want to mention this idea of Catalyst versus Valkyrie and what you're giving up for teams who are maybe opting to play more of a Seer Bangalore Catalyst with vision, with mid-site reconstruction, making sure that you can handle a situation that doesn't go your way, like Gaming Gladiators. They were a little late. The circle shifted. You'd skyward dive, you land, but you're not able to get anything off it. Whereas Catalyst, I feel like, is really equipped to deal with those moments where things just feel bad. Let's throw up a wall. We'll buy ourselves some time.
And absolutely, especially towards the southern side of the zone, we saw it working so well. And though we get a lot of teams falling in that area, the fact that you're not only able to use your own wall, but so often those of others that are in the immediate area as well is a massive benefit to so many squads. Now, of course, we did have a massive culling towards the southern side, and it wasn't just as everybody left checkpoint, it was on the way in as well.
I love that word. It's so appropriate, and that is the case with Apex. At times, it's just 20 squads to 13 in a matter of one zone, and that is what ended up happening. These 13 were left to fight it out near down beast, and it got rough for anyone who was not set up. 2R1C had themselves a decent game. We're seeing Watson come back into a staple pick in the meta, and this was Life in China's best up there to be sneaky. Reply Totem picked it off, and in fact, that ended up working really well for them because you could see Jazz on top of it all. No one really paying attention to him in this fight, Dia, and that is what gave him that angle.
And the fact that he's playing Catalyst as well is a massive boon for Jazaz, because he's able to walk through these ferrofluid veils, through all of the spikes scattered on the ground without fearing for his life. Catalyst is the character that is immune to so many other cooldowns from Catalyst. It's much like Caustic, and it works excellently in that situation to be able to say, well, I don't have to interact with this chaos, let's just take people down.
What's weird too is we haven't seen this meta always in Apex. Sometimes we saw, everyone has to have a Gibraltar, right? Remember the Gibby times. It's not like Gibby wasn't taking damage from another Gibby's defensive bombardment. So you don't really always have those benefits from playing the same character. But when it comes to Caustic, when he's in the meta, when it comes to Catalyst, you're absolutely right. There is something your Catalyst player can do, take that extra weight on their shoulders and say, I'm walking through this, I'm playing through this. And not everyone is anticipating that those piercing spikes won't hold for that Catalyst inside. That wall won't matter for that Catalyst right behind. And in fact, I want to see a little bit more, Dia, I know you do too, of how Jazz managed that final circle. Let's break this down.
Yeah, I mean, taking a look at it, we know that Starfight are in an excellent position. We talked about it already. Being able to wall off and then seal with the door this low ground was an incredible start for, well, start a fight. They had thermites, they had everything going their way, but what they didn't have, especially from this position, was the angle onto the high ground that Jazaz was able to just hide behind for so long.
And it was really such smart play as well, because he's crouching, he's staying out of sight. He does not want to show presence. And sometimes that's all it is. Just make somebody else a better, more obvious target than you are. And that slow play totally ended up working. Start a fight. They throw the Dark Veil out. They see the Dark Veil as well. They've got the Seer exhibit down from Wicked Sick. And although they know where people are, they're not able to get these shots off. And it's just unfortunate that creeping in behind, that little silhouette on the left, Jazz is ready with the Catalyst and walking through the piercing spikes, not taking damage. If this is any other character, Jazz might not be able to make it out alive.
Yeah, Jazz, literally just doesn't live to see another legend in the end zone. And this crouch walking was a function of two things, both being on the roof, as we talked about, and denying angles, but then also being able to avoid Seer ults. And that's something that Start a Fight were extremely vocal about in their comms. And the counterplay, especially when combined with Catalyst, so often is just make as little movement as possible, because if you're crouch walking, Seer doesn't see you.
Now, this is huge for Reply Totem. It may be a little bit too late, but where they stand is currently going to the LCQ. They're in 24th place with 27 total points overall. They're currently now in first, though, and that means that they are setting themselves up for maybe a magic day to push themselves into the middle of the pack. Maybe that top 20 have a chance at a regional final. They are in Group A, so this is their last day to be able to play. But J-Ling, Start a Fight, Gela, and Ascend also rounding out the top 5 deal. Let's take a look, though, at the bottom 20 for our match number 1.
This is where things get a little bit rougher, where I'm looking at a team like 2R1C and wondering how they'll be able to do. They sit in 8th right now, and much like Start a Fight and FUT are teams that have a lot to lose. Even further down, we've got Vexed, who are in a little bit safer of a spot when it comes to qualifying themselves for playoffs, but it is just game 1 rain day, and especially when we get zones like this, when honestly, we get the variation of jumping into the first game. All of these teams could do with a little bit of a breather, because game 1 does not have to define you.
Yeah, and these points relatively, I think, top heavy. We saw a lot of teams go down quickly. Gaming Gladiators, Aurora, 2R1C, Nightmare. It feels like they all got like 2 kills, then died. And that tends to be where we started. But maybe some good news for teams like Reply Totem who might be finding their way. J Links, they performed really well in this group setting. Let's see if they can continue to do it again. And will Aurora and Gaming Gladiators continue to make moves, or will they find themselves waiting and watching on the sidelines? We'll find out. Game 2 coming up in just a second here in ALGS Match Day 8. WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here with Match 2 for our ALGS Match Day 8. I am Rain Day, that is Dia, and we have just seen Reply Totem take game number 1 in spectacular fashion. It's Catalyst all around, Dia. It seems like this character, although maybe in mid-season, started to fall by the wayside and in replace of maybe some Watson options for Catalyst. I think it has come right back, roaring into these final days as something that players are certainly considering a fixture of high-level play.
And for good reason. Catalyst is extraordinarily powerful, and I'd say the other legend that was introduced at the beginning of Season 16's meta alongside her was the Seer. You couldn't have a Catalyst without Seer, or vice versa. And what really stood out to me about this last game and the last couple of weeks in general of the ALGS, both Challenger Circuit and Pro League, is that teams are experimenting with foregoing one, if not both, of these legends. We saw 2R1C do it up on height, running Crypto Watson, and we saw... it wasn't Element 6, but Element 6 definitely did with the Caustic and Crypto. Try something a little bit new as well. Plenty of squads are going, well, maybe we don't need things like Catalyst, first of all, Seer, second of all, and it's making me question the very basis of the Season 16 meta.
I thought you were saying the very basis of reality. We don't need Seer and Apex Legends competitive. I think people would go, what has gone on with the fabric of the universe? I think that's also a great indicator of how valuable this pairing is and how comfortable people sometimes get. That's always my statement as we get ready to go into Match 2 and start talking about things. Comfort breeds this sense of an inability to adjust when things quickly change. And a meta shift, a final 2 days where everyone has put in the work to really qualify, a LAN. These are things when the meta shifts drastically quickly, and you have to be good at staying comfortable in being uncomfortable. And I don't know if we're going to be seeing that right now. I do certainly like, though, that people are experimenting. There is a little bit of wariness, though, if they are not having that same level of success, if they don't exactly know what is working. And I think I've seen that with other teams. I'm not going to mention their names throughout the split that have tried a couple lineups. They haven't quite figured it out. And maybe even Aurora, too, a team I'm looking at that. Have they figured it out? They're one of the only teams playing Horizon. I don't know how I like Horizon this split. And Dia, I want your thoughts on it. Is this a character that is just, are they throwing things at the wall right now? But or does it really work for them? What do you think about it?
It's a little column A, little column B for me, because Horizon, especially last season when we saw her define the meta, was so often the legend that you would pick simply because you wanted to win a fight. You'd pop up on a gravity lift, take somebody down, throw out an ultimate, and say, congratulations, you've found the end of the game. And this season, Horizon doesn't exactly work like that, but she does give you a lot of mobility, and her passive does really help, especially when navigating these inter-game fights. And so Aurora, well, I don't particularly look at Horizon and go, oh, this is going to be the legend that changes their game. It fits with the theme of what they've tried so far. Mad Maggie, Ash, trying constantly to look for these more aggressive angles. I think we even saw them whip out the Fuse at one point. Aurora want to take fights, and Horizon historically is a legend that can do that in this patch, at the very least functionally.
And as to me, I think just to end to the piece, you want to be comfortable staying uncomfortable, but you also want to get comfortable at some point. You can't change something up all the time. You do have to find what works for you. Clearly in that moment, game one didn't go their way. Reply Totem, though, had a fantastic game number one. And heading back to Storm Point, let's talk about it. There are dynamics, too, that set these teams up for success. Part of it is mid-split. So after our first 5 match days, we went and started, instead of on World's Edge, now on Storm Point. And as we know, Dia, certain teams can take advantage of that map in the early and get going far ahead of their competitors.
Yeah, it's really important if you are an Edge team to start the day off well, because Storm Point is one of those maps that, especially when people are starting their days here, means that we get a lot more teams that are a little bit more hesitant on the rotations, that catch themselves out in the open. But when we switch the order of maps like this, a lot of people will say that it doesn't matter, and I argue that it certainly does, because if you are, on the other side of the coin, one of the teams that does like to favor that zone a little bit more, like a KCP, like a 2R1C, that is constantly predicting these endgames, I'd even throw out there like a Vortex, you now have the last 3 maps to look forward to, a World's Edge that is so much more in your favor that you can control, and it gives you the chance to mount a comeback as one of these squads that may be on the outs during the first 3 games.
Certainly a team trying to mount a comeback in general, led by this man right here with his heroics in game number 1. That was Jazz on Reply Totem. Currently sitting overall in the standings of the split in 24th position. That puts them outside of the regional finals, and this is their last day to play. They have 27 points, and basically they need to win or place top 3 to feel confident that they'll be able to be in a top 20 position. And this man right here has definitely set the tone for the afternoon. 1,013 damage done, 7 kills and 1 assist from the UK native. Loving the Horizon, but showing us what the Catalyst can do. A team that has been flexible, a team that in Sweden, our first playoff series, our first live event for a period of 960 plus days, almost made it into the winners finals for that last day. But unfortunately, we're just a day late and $1 short in terms of their points. They don't want that same experience here. They need to make it into the regional finals to have a chance to represent Atlan yet again, Dia.
Yeah, Jazaz has done amazing things for this squad, has the highest kill and knock average over the course of the split on the entire team, and certainly if you are looking to a player to spearhead you towards these next couple games, to keep you out of the relegation zone, Jazaz has to be it, and it's that meshing with the rest of the squad, as this is one of those rosters that has seen its shift ups recently with the introduction of Arctic, that perhaps Totem can look towards as they continue to gel and find what works best for them, where they can be most comfortable in the discomfort that ALGS is currently presenting them. As we jump into game number 2, we're going to get the chance to run this back. As we said, as I reminded so many teams coming out of game 1, it doesn't have to define you. Let's see who comes out on top of map number 2.
An opportunity for a lot of teams here. I'm looking definitely at how they can manage bouncing back. I know there is this element of GG, Aurora, teams that we want to see compete and do well, but you have to eliminate the moments that you completely leave a 21-point game wide open for a team that's behind you. You need to catch the teams in front of you, and it's obviously easier said than done, Dia, but this is where that opportunity is seized. There's only one more day for Group A. There's 2 more days for Group C. I want to see that tenacity from these teams. And to me, it's let's play a little safer to start. be in that final zone, rotate early, set yourself up so top 10 you're fighting, not top 20. And that, I think, will give you that confidence heading into it, which they are sorely needing to definitely give themselves the security to say, yeah, we can do this. That's what I'm looking for here.
Yeah, you really do want, I dare say, need to be in the zone if you are one of the teams that is hoping to grab a little bit more consistency today than the rest of the season has given you, because there are squads, like we talked about last game, say for example, that will flip a coin and determine your fate for you. Taking it into your own hands is going to be really important as we again pop ourselves up towards the northern side of the map, a little even further north this time, and a big advantage to squads that land Thunderwatch, Lightning Rod, and High Point, as all three of those individual POIs have great relocation into this zone as well as a ring console.
Looking at J-Lings too, I think this is a team that maybe is a bit underrated in terms of their power. You've got to give credit where credit is due. Noise is an IGL that maybe with Graceful, though we thought it would have worked nicely, maybe ended up not giving Noises the level of confidence he needed to make the calls, knowing how good Graceful was also. He went on to Element 6. He's now retired and has done some great things for his family, and we wish him the best. We hope to see him again in different circumstances. But when you look at JMW, a LAN winner with Dark Zero in Sweden, when you look at Nags, who has played with K-Swinny, who's often been a fragger that people have said this guy has the skill to be in top 10. Can he actually perform that way? They were in that final circle. I want to see more out of them. I think we are starting to see a glimpse of a team that could threaten LAN and certainly is playing to their potential.
I'd be in the same boat, or perhaps the same trident, as J-Lings start to make their way in towards the zone. Early rotations that we talked about being pivotal for these rings, and one in this particular case that as we pull over towards Bunny Slopes is going to mean that a lot of teams end out in the open. With J-Lings running something like a Watson, they do have a small advantage, but you'd really prefer a building during the early stages of this initial round, and there are very few to be found. J-Lings have somehow not been shot at. I am amazed that they're all right and that they get to pop out to maybe pick up some free kills.
They're doing the shooting. Yeah, they said we're not getting shot at. We got our Trident for extra cover as well. Good stuff from JMW, and he picks up 2 R1C. The Orphan goes down. And now J-Lings with 13 points already feel like they've got a lay of the land. Team up top. They've been able to down one. They know one escaped. That's Hierka hiding and waiting. And there's a team in the building nearby. So we'll follow along with J-Lings to continue. But this is what I said. They got themselves into that zone, Dia, really, really early. And this means that, yes, they're fighting, but they're fighting without now needing to move, without needing to be battling uphill or into a building off a team. They can hold here for a while, but these next 5 minutes are going to be crucial because they will not be the only team doing this. As J-Lings say, you know what? Maybe we aren't in the best spot. Let's get even closer. They are now even more in the mix, trying to find a spot to settle.
Mixing things up a bit. This is a little further towards the edge, but an equally, if not more, difficult position to push for J-Lings. So get a bit more safety given to them, now getting the chance to set up with the Watson and taking this position away from 2R1C, who previously held it before losing some members. Element 6 also going for the relocation, pulling themselves further up north and into wall. This is not the zone prediction that many teams will have, and Element 6 have changed things up pretty drastically, given that they don't actually have the data on this second ring pull. They didn't land with a ring console.
Oh, trouble here for Gaming Gladiators. They're getting shot from all over, and they don't know that Vex is behind them. That right there is Gaming Gladiators not only getting shot from Vex, but getting shot from Morning Stars. Oh, no. Spelling trouble here for Hardeki and the crew. They just found themselves in the middle of a sandwich, and they were not the bread. They were the meat this time around. That is looking difficult, but will there be a way for one to make it out? I think Leogri has definitely gone down. There's just one more left from Gaming Gladiators.
Vex have plenty of opportunity here. These were some of the buildings that we talked about earlier being really important to hold down, and Vex just don't even care about them. Playing outside, playing in the open, looking for kills. Game of Drones go down to ANC outplayed, and Vex start fixing their sights on the north. There's teams coming from Command Center, those teams that may very well have relocated.
Maybe back to an overview here as this fight is continuing to go, or maybe just looking at the map. All of these teams have continued to move into this circle up north. And there are several teams also on the late rotation. You can look at Aurora in the same way. Foot Esports, who have performed so well. VCGO, who won the last EMEA match day, also playing Edge. And these are not teams that want to run into each other. That's part of the issue I'm having with this play, because the quality of teams Aurora's going to have to beat on Edge, it's going to be a 50-50. Can they do it? Can they perform? They've got the horizon here. We'll see. Ranches, he throws down the artillery strike from Bangalore to buy a little bit of time. But the issue here is, how can they push past this big dinosaur wall? Seems like they're worried about letting somebody pass themselves and trying to just defend for now.
Especially choke point like this, Sunset's gonna have to come in really clutch with Horizon's ability to get over these walls by Jurassic. But first, Aurora have to find a crack that makes that worthwhile. Digi-threats in hand. Wrenches is gonna have the advantage inside this Bangalore smoke, but they're running out of munitions and they're running out of options. Aurora are continually trapped in here, and they almost go down as Sunset crests the wall again. That's another Horizon ult in the same fight, but he's down just as quickly.
And he just has terrible communication there. You can't push because Ranch just takes all that damage and then has to backtrack and heal. And that's when Sunset goes for the ultimate. No one to follow up and gets isolated in a 1v2. That was tough for Aurora. And again, showing that these fights are what their issue is. If they get past BitFix in this situation, they have a clean route to play in front of them for the rest of the game, but it is looking very dismal at this moment for Aurora to stabilize. It's not over. There's still a chance. There's still a thing called banners in this game, but Ranches and Cleve are now fighting an uphill battle.
And this is where you kind of wish you were running somebody more in the support legend category. We talked about this before the show, Rain Day, but things that have been seeing small bumps in their popularity, like Newcastle, like Loba, are really important when you're in a situation like Aurora's, where you are being kept away from the banner, where you don't get the chance to pick up your teammate and instead are going to be forced to play things out as a duo. If you're running something that can craft the banners, it's as easy as dipping back into the zone and picking your squad mate back up.
19 squads here. Despite all the action, only Game of Drones has fallen in match 2. Foot Esports sitting in 5th place with 7 points and a very healthy Life and Taylor trying to take the life from the player in front of them. And it's just enough to poke the shield and force an elimination. Morningstars, who were a part of getting in on the action earlier against GG, who left with 1 player and are still alive, are now eliminated as we move on down to 18.
Get the chance, I'd love to take a look at the map as well. There's been some really interesting maneuvers around these couple zones, and especially when it comes to picking up ring consoles in order to get yourself more information. FUT, perhaps operating without it right now, are playing very much out in the open and up against Vortex. This is not the easiest fight to take. Vortex have the option to dip back onto the low ground so much easier, have a bunch of head peaks to play, and seem to be maneuvering the fight to their advantage.
No catalyst on the side of Vortex, though. They've opted with the Seer, Bangalore, and Valkyrie, movement, utility, and information. And I gotta say, I'm a big fan of the Assault class. I do like what Bangalore brings to a roster right now, alongside just being a fantastic, well-balanced character in the Apex Legends popular, casual, and high-level scene. It's rare to get that across all 3, but Bang has done it. Foot Esports decides, yes, we can defend, but we don't really have the right spot to defend here. So we're just going to make that move. Opting with the Catalyst instead of the Bang. They've got the Valkyrie, but they'll save that Skyward dive for later. Sometimes it's just smarter to walk it in.
Very few meds for this team, so they won't be able to tank up the zone by too much. Checkpoint does have a crafter available, and as long as Vortex don't negative rotate back into Checkpoint, FUT should be all right to be able to craft up more med kits, perhaps get a better angle on a Valkyrie ultimate from there. Fortunately enough, the POI is also home to a ring console and a survey beacon, so FUT planning their moves out accordingly to try and pick up as much information, meds, whatever they need for the late game as possible.
One of the reasons I always like seeing Lobas involved, it's pretty difficult to do it. But when you get her there in that late game, all these issues, looting, meds, it's not a problem. Tia, you mentioned the map here as well. You can see Aurora with the 2 still alive. Have they been able to get their 3 back? We'll find out. I don't think so just yet, but as this starts to move in, what are you seeing here as the map gets highlighted?
There's a team I really want to highlight, and it's Nightmare, who actually may be going up against Ascend. It would be a tragic end to what has been great setup out of this team. Sitting up by Lightning Rod, High Point, Thunderwatch, farming up these ring consoles. They actually have this next scan on the zone, where so many teams do not, and have been able to hit Survey Beacon on the way in. This is a squad that is set up for success when it comes to the information, and Nightmare currently sit in our little pineapple-shaped buildings up to the north. We'll see how it works out for them as 2R1C say their prayers and Valgoldin, fortunately, still alive.
Taking the benefits of at least one door barricaded by a Catalyst. I guess that's good if you want to keep people out. Not necessarily good if you want to get out of there quickly as well, because you'll still have to break it down with a couple of extra kicks thanks to her passive, making a difference in this late game. 4 buildings and 4 teams, all sitting comfortably within them. Amaz, you see Horizon, 0-0 over there. You see 2R1C, see start a fight, taking the outskirts of the gazebo. VCGO just holding that angle on the far north side of your vision right now. And this is a team that won, like we mentioned, last match day. I'm more curious, Thea, can they do it again? Because that was such a contested match day. It could flip like a coin, and anybody else could have won that. It was 17 points separating the first and the 13th place team. I want to see them do it again. If so, I think this is a team we need to start talking a lot more about.
I'd have to agree with you. If you're able to consistently change these situations that really could go any way into your favor, that's where you become a team that everybody has to be worried about, where you go, well, how are they solving the situation where we cannot? And that's what you want to aspire to, especially at these levels of Apex Legends. Now, we've seen a few squads take these creative solutions, dipping back into the zone and again to be able to reorganize their approach to the ring. I'm thinking specifically of FUT taking that long way around into checkpoint, get crafter, get ring console, get everything that you could possibly want. But now that all ends. This next zone is unforgiving. The typical ring 3 that crowds everybody into one spot, not allowing you to exist inside it for minutes at a time, is going to mean a lot here. And V2, they're on the hustle already. They know the time is limited. 40 seconds left on this zone close, and a squad in between them and safety.
Desperately needing points in Group C. One of their 2 match days to end the season happening today, the other tomorrow. And they are sitting in the middle of the pack. Can they continue to try to rise here with some decent scores? 16, the highest point total they've ever achieved in a match. And they did it last time. We'll see more from V2 here. Zidane hits a couple of shots there. Bitfix go down in the process. Light work so far, but you've got to stay wary. I'm happy they have the Catalyst here. I think they're going to need it because of the pressure that is about to amount.
You say light work, and I think many hands. V2 and Totem, both playing a crucial part of eliminating Bitfix there, who were left with no options. But as you say, now this Catalyst has to come into effect for V2, who have no effective way of taking on Totem in this choke. They don't have height, they don't have much. Out goes the Catalyst wall, and we'll see what it can do. It's separated Arctic from the rest of the squad, and forward they dive as Arctic throws himself bodily behind this rock into a bit of safety, allowing V2 to take height.
And I think that's more of a mechanical opportunity miss than an actual tactical opportunity miss, because they had some shots, and just as I say it, holy, what an aim from Zidane. Beautiful plays from the Catalyst. The wall forces them away. Zidane cleans it up with a nemesis in the R99. Also Zidane. Oh my goodness. Looking like the legendary footballer, the class, the suave nature, and the grace. Picks up 3, and that was Reply Totem, our winners of last game, down and out.
And we get to see that interaction again, by the way, this refrag potential of the Catalyst using her ability to pass through other Catalyst walls changes everything for V2, as things unfortunately start to change perhaps in the other direction for FUT. Liffin's been taken down by a few unlucky longbow shots, and now a quick res covered by this Catalyst is still putting FUT in danger.
Taylor with support throws his exhibit down so he can allow his teammates to see if anyone is pushing them off of that res. As Taylor still holds the anchor position, and nags from J-Links just to his left. In front, though, all eyes on Start a Fight. They're the ones who just knocked Liffen, and they're going to try to regroup here as Foot also tries to regroup. Nags just trying to stay out of sight, out of mind. He's like, I'm only one player. Don't worry about me. And I think that's the right move as well. 13 squads left. It continues with V2. And I can tell you, with Zidane feeling the way he is, he's going to keep on going. That's 5 and 2. Nearly 800 damage, but it's clinical work from Zidane and V2. Just when we said they needed a big game, they're looking like they're having one.
Keep your eyes on this man because he is taking no prisoners in the second game. V2 are now one of the only squads to be approaching from this angle, making their way in towards the next zone. They alone have control of these choke points and still have plenty to fight through, especially as they cross through open territory. What are they going to do here? Do they Valkyrie? Do they again rely on the Catalyst wall to take down another team?
And this is why in some of these zones, the way they're being played, you can actually do better with a Catalyst than a Valkyrie. And I know that sounds crazy, but these Skyward Dives are basically a gamble. They are not guaranteed to land you in any place that you don't immediately die. You have to kind of walk up these things and play what is given. And you can see right here, teams taking the risk, but that may mean we see a few teams in the kill feed go down very quickly.
Good identification from Joke. This squad on height on the nuts up to the north is the most terrifying one to V2. It's one of the few teams that will have angles over the course of the next few minutes. And right now, this Bangalore squad causing a bit of a headache as well inside the IMC Armory. Maybe time to push once you recover from this. 2R1C, hold it down underneath the IMC Armory. Another very powerful place to play.
V2 up on top, feeling confident as well. Why wouldn't they? 5 and 2 for Zidane, looking like Zinedine with the way that he's been playing. Can he continue that form? And I can't believe it. That team up on Nut has still survived. They've had so much pressure. Don't exactly know who that is, but they have still made it. It seems like V2 going on the other side, and now the Catalyst wall is charged. But they want to make sure Joke has his Seer exhibit, and that's going to take a little bit more time. Joke not wasting time, though, with the R99.
Constantly laying down the damage, and especially if you can get a nice break and interrupt, perhaps. V2 can feel a lot more confident jumping down. Right now, it appears a lack of ordinances are the things keeping them back, as finally one ends up being thrown in by YOLO, but it's not going to connect, and V2 are going to send it anyway!
Oh, he misses! He misses everything! Are you kidding me? If V2 go down, Joke has got to look at himself here. He's got to save it. Oh, no! What a moment! V2 eliminated that first spray. It's just one of those times that you get it wrong and it's the right play and the wrong aim. And there's nothing else to say about it. Unlucky from V2. Vortex CGO, though, continuing on their rampage. It will not be the V2 story for Game 2.
It's such a tough thing about Apex Legends, especially when you are a squad that does want to play a little bit more zone-oriented. I'm thinking about 2R1C, even on the inside of that IMC Armory, cleaning it all up. But when you have to perform, it has to be at your maximum. There is no casual play in the ALGS. There is waiting for the zone to come to you, waiting for teams to fight you, and now we must play the best game of Apex we've ever played in our entire lives. Those are the two extremes, and there is no forgiveness when you make a mistake.
And Dia, thank God, we're not in that situation, because if I died every time I missed one of my R99 magazines, well, I would never get to play this game. So, unfortunate. V2, they'll be happy with the amount of kills they got up until that point, but Ascend, 0-0. They're fighting right down here. Ascend is going to win. Passion goes down. Horizon and Amaz will fall with 0-0 being taken down by Lufka. They're nice and content here in this building. They can play at least one more zone, and they'll have to slowly move out. It's going to be tough to get in, and I like Ascend's spot here, despite people knowing exactly where they are.
And they're one of only 2 full squads left. Unless 2R1C have been able to pick back their comrade, Ascend and Vortex on opposite sides of this ring are the ones in the most danger. And look at where this ring is pulling as well, straight out into the open. It's going to have to be a massive fight, but specifically for Ascend, who have to take on 3 different squads.
Nags finally goes down. Ascend Can they do it and ascend to the top? Let's listen in and find out if they can be the victors of match number 2.
10 seconds. We need to figure out something, Cas.
Yeah. Let me. We're just gonna send it. Wait.
From inside or bottom? I think we sent from
No,
inside.
silent. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Go.
Shit, nice job.
Go outside. Get space. We need to get space.
Fuck, I got destroyed. I'm popping a bot as well. I'm dead, probably. Popping a bot. I might be dead. I'm dead.
Heal almost cracked.
Yeah, I'm low.
Well, I can say the caster curse is in effect today, but we also said VCGO, if they win this game, are starting to prove it wasn't just happenstance in match day 6. So both sides of the coin, it seems like 50-50 was the theme in that last one, at least what we made it, Dia. And boy, oh boy, I'd say there was 100% great action in game 2.
Yeah, crucial victory for them. And I will say, watching how Ascend played that as well, devastating for Nightmare, who spent so long planning their approach to the ring only to be jumped on from zone 5. Oh my god, heartbreak.
You know what I find interesting, though? Really, my initial thought is I go back to the moment between TSM and Ascend at LAN. And TSM win that partially because they have mobility and height. You know, when you can change the dynamics of a fight, you're great. And Ascend builds their team with that crypto and with that Watson, and they lose out on the in-fight mobility. And as they're aggressing over that open space, they get taken down. That's where the fight is won. I'm wondering if Ascend, despite winning this game, are going to stick with just this squad. I feel like there may be an option on Storm Point, which is where they lost that fight as well, to add some level of movement to this roster. I know the crypto and the Watson is comfortable, but is it enough in these often open-ended circle fights that they end up being second place in, knowing they want to be first?
I think you pick up Gibby. Gibby wins in that fight. That's my hot take. It's not
that is a hot
true,
take.
But
it's getting hot in here, man. Not just because your ponytail looks good today. Did you show him the scrunchie? Did you show him the scrunchie, by the way? Okay, look at what my man is rocking right here. Tiff, let's bring you in. Get your thoughts on this because it was a great finish to game 2.
Thoughts on the scrunchie or the game? Because I think the scrunchie looks impeccable. Yeah, I was off screen just staring. Both perfect. I love that. Actually, I was kind of crunching some numbers here. VC, go, Vortex. After taking that map win, beautifully done, by the way, they're coming off their best match day. It was a win for them. Now think of this. They're 14th place overall and doing everything that they need to further traject themselves toward that top 10.
I love that idea, too, because they're a team right now that it's not safe that they might be in that top 20. They've got to perform. But also, can you imagine a top 10 spot, almost a guaranteed spot at LAN if they can hold on at the regional finals? That would be a shock, Dia, for everyone in watching this as we take a look at the highlights of game 2. Walk me through your thoughts on that VCGO and also how this played out.
Yeah, I mean, this game, as we talked about, quite challenging to play out. Very few buildings in zone to actually hold, especially as teams started to approach. But those ones that did come from the north had a little bit of a better time. Even Ascend, remember, landing over at wall, have the ring console, get the chance to pick their spot first. Nightmare joined up right alongside them to finish inside the top 3, and Vortex were the exception to the rule, able to defy where so many other squads struggled on their rotations and pick up these kills after a lackluster game number 1. And this is the big turning point for them. As we talked about their win already, but being able to pick up even a top 5 placement here puts Vortex in an incredibly powerful position, and one that if you'd gotten in a room with all the top squads in EMEA and said, hey guys, you know who's joining you in 2 weeks? It's Vortex. You laughed out of the room. It's a totally different roster than we saw during the first couple rounds of the ALGS in year 3, and right now, Vortex are peaking at the perfect time.
But it's not the only time we've seen that, Tiff. There are many roster swaps that feel like, wow, that's new. It's going to take a moment to get them going. And then they get going immediately. Sometimes synergy just happens when you add a new member to the squad.
And we keep circling back to that same thing. It's synergy, it's cohesion, it's teams that enjoy working and playing together. I was talking to Alex, the coach of J-Lings. He's reiterating the same sentiment that we keep hearing. He was talking about J-Lings and how much they just enjoy showing up and working with each other. And I think that's what we're witnessing from this Vortex roster, not only with Yaku joining us on the prior Ratch Day, he was talking about the same sentiments as well. He's on cloud 9. Like, this was the best moment of my career, and I want to feel more of that, and it's showing.
You know, that was just a wonderful showcase of a lot of different stories coming to a head, and that's why this is only going to get better later on today and tomorrow for those who are watching, because the stories continue to develop this way, where anything can happen and everyone is vying for spots, and there's only 20 of them. There's maybe only 10 of them if you're trying to qualify. And so that ultimately leads to somebody's got to do it. Somebody's going to go home. VCGO did it, though, in front of Ascend, who we thought they seem like they have the best position. I want to look back at that, Dia and Tiff, and kind of analyze how VCGO won that final fight over Ascend.
Yeah, Dia, I mean, you got to cast over it, but while I'm lying in wait, there were two fights in particular that I thought was going to give two different teams, not VCGO, the upper hand. And I love that they're holding on to that rock for dear life, but it was the moment that Ascend maintained their pineapple position by eliminating Passion. And we heard it in the listen. It was just send it, right? Just a Giga Chad moment where they full sent, but could not maintain that initial rotation out of the building to take space. The other fight being the 2R1C taking down V2 to hold the IMC Armory.
Dia, I was just going to set up a question. Is there anything Ascend can do to win this?
I don't think so. At this point, after having picked up the team underneath you, after having eliminated Nightmare, Ascend made the best move for themselves. If they don't take out Nightmare, they 100% die coming out of the building and might not even make second. By at least managing to take out Nightmare, they secure second place for themselves, at least 3 KP, and jumping out into the open while they were yelling, take ground, it's all we have. You're relying on Vortex to mess up, and Vortex didn't.
And to me, there's no doubt about it. Nags does a good job as a solo. Remember, we saw him in Start a Fight Foot Esports going back and forth together near the gazebo. Stays alive till 4th, so they get 7 points off of that placement mostly. But the 3 best teams here were Vortex, CGO, Ascend, and V2. And notably so, even though V2 get 8th position and only 2 placement points, they end up in 3rd overall with 13 points, thanks to the 11 kills that they had, mostly by Zidane. Let's head to the second half, though, of these teams. And I am getting a little worried. Aurora come in with 4 first game. You think, okay, that's not bad. 1, that is not what they're looking for. 5 after 2. We need more from them. Element 6 get a couple of good kills. Vex, we know how they could pop off, but it's typically on Storm Point, so waiting for that big game from them. And Reply Totem after the win, 4 points. That's okay. They've already done enough. As we head to our overall standings, Tiff, your reaction as Reply Totem still just in top over Vortex.
That's fantastic for Reply Totem. I mean, they were facing potential relegation, so they had to perform today. But to what level? This was insanity what we witnessed in game number 1, and I would love to see them keep that momentum moving forward. Ascend from Split 1, we're one of the most consistent teams in EMEA, and they're showing that consistency here today. They've elected to land the wall, right?
Yeah.
Instead of taking that contest at Barometer. I think that's thinking forward. What do they need to do for LAN, right? You're claiming a new POI that is magnificent and impeccable to the rotations that we're seeing. And Dia, I want to get your thoughts on that later after this, because I think with the zones pulling so northwest, that's mission critical. Because Rain Day, you said Aurora, they're having issues finding themselves in 15th place. They're landing Gale Station.
Yeah, they're having a tough time. And I think that this is one of those things where you look at Vex having not a great day. That's okay. They've done enough. E6, they have not done enough. They need to pick it up. And Aurora, we already know the story with them. We'll find out, though. Can somebody change it in game number 3? This will be potentially a turning point for one of those teams. Let's head over to Tiff and Dia to walk us through it.
Thank you so much, Rain Day. Yeah, I want to continue that conversation, Dia, because I think it's mission critical. And with our last game on Storm Point, for the teams that maybe haven't gotten the points that they needed to feel comfortable before moving on to World's Edge, what does someone like Aurora, who's taking Gale Station, having to fight upwards in verticality to the furthermost point of Storm Point. Those rotations are tough.
They really are, and we've seen a lot of teams make use of tridents to cover for that, but especially in Gale Station, you put yourself in a tough position from the get-go. The nice thing is that Aurora get shipfall as well and don't have to land a Gale as an isolated POI, as we have seen some teams do in the past. And even from here, they finally roll right, which is good, because the advice that I had for this team was, I'm sorry, there's not a lot that you can do when you have to run it up, when you are constantly forced into playing this edge style that you may not be actually comfortable with, despite the fact that Aurora very frequently put themselves in a position to do so compositionally. Now it's the test, though. We've looked at 2 zones and gone, well, it's a little unlucky for Aurora. This is the luckiest it gets for them, outside of the fact that they don't have a ring console to use, and the fact they don't know that the ring is coming here. They should have a pretty darn good idea.
They do have that map scan available to them, and I think that will give them information because we know there's a lot of teams, in particular J-Lings has access to the Trident over on the north side of Mill. They're one of the teams electing to utilize that for their rotational advantage, but Totem, they're on top of the leaderboard. They're in antenna. This is beautiful for them.
It really is, and Totem, having one of their best days so far, should be able to make use of the crafter and antenna as well, set themselves up for a good game. Now, when you do land an antenna, you know that the zone isn't coming here, so what moves Totem chooses to make towards this end game are going to be really telling, whether they bunker down an antenna, perhaps hoping for a little bit of a different end game, or whether they try and be proactive, take some space in shipfall, and see what they can make happen from there. Nice spider farming strats. This is, take note, everybody. Watch what
you want
just
to
did.
get
you
them all together and throw one nade on them, and then you eliminate all of the spiders at the same time. Vortex now taking to the craft room. We think about what's in that crafting rotation. We just moved away from the energy mag and the digi threat to the knockdown shield and the Moby. How do you think this is going to affect some of our teams here today?
Yeah, this is, of course, going to be really impactful, especially because of the digi threat and the interactions with Bangalore. We talked about this a little bit earlier on, but when you don't have the ability to just pick up a digi threat, things become a little bit more difficult, and you start having to play a lot more of that edge style to try and pick up digi threats that are perhaps left behind, not caught by people playing around these POIs that they like to loot very quickly and then get going. With shotgun bolt and double tap trigger as well, it's worth considering crafting an EVA 8. Still a very powerful shotgun, just not one that we see picked up very often.
That's true. Honestly, there are a lot of things in life that I would like to craft, but EVA 8 really isn't my go-to. But we've seen different things happen, and when Vortex electing to hit the grav cannon to make their rotation, some peppering from afar is going to come their way, but not going to amount to much. The only thing it's doing is giving Vortex the information of, hey, there's a team over here.
And a decent bit of information. What won't really hurt anyone, as right now they've still got plenty of time to make their own way into the ring. This approach from the southern side, actually not a bad one for Vortex to take, as it'll allow them to hopefully take a little bit more time in their approach to shipfall, grab some height, and in most situations like this, where we do have the zone, the second one, pulling a little further south, you're thinking it's going to end the open area around the gravity cannon, maybe around the buildings just to the north of shipfall, but to shipfall direct, that'd be a bit of a stretch, so we'll see how Vortex choose to approach.
This is where the ring pull is going to be a significant factor and can be really grotesque to some of the teams if it goes that complete opposite way. Similar to how map 1 went, we had a lot of teams hoping potentially we were going to see it in checkpoint, and then it pulled out to the down beast where J-Lings had a perfect read on it. So when we think of where is J-Lings positioning themselves here and now, and they're electing to take the outskirts of shipfall. Meanwhile, Gaming Gladiators has the pineapple. They're fencing up their position, taking space, so you can farm up Artico's shield just nicely.
And not a bad spot to play, because not many teams will prioritize this either. You won't likely fall victim to a lot of squads that do want to take gambles on the edge, but Passion, It's almost the opposite situation. Landing over here by the gravity cannon, yes, they won't fall prey to a lot of teams by edge, but I like the move from EMEA because you don't want to stay at this gravity cannon for the long haul. This is maybe a zone 3, zone 4 position. It is not a round 1 spot to hold.
Well, I respect what Amaz is doing here with the charge rifle, scoping out the beginning of Shipfall. There is a map room scan that is available over here that Zero Nothing could hit that would give them a little bit information. But first you have to check and say, hey, is this space clear? Am I mirroring someone? And you 100% are. 2R1C has already taken advantage of this spot. Horizon gets completely decimated, forced to hit a med kit, which is going to take at least 8 seconds and put them out of the fight. And when your Valk is significantly damaged, yes, you can grab a shield swap, so you're upgrading to a purple shield. That's definitely going to help in this situation.
Yeah, thank God they were able to pick up the very quick swap in case they had to fight, because Passion very well could have been pushed. With 3 squads in the area, though, this comes down to risk. E6 waiting along the sidelines as well, playable on these fence lines, but everybody in this Shipfall area, rather the position just north of it, really don't want to fight if they can avoid it, because making an engagement happen now is forcing yourself out of the game in a very real way.
Yeah, I'm looking at Vortex in the back of Shipfall, 2R1C cohabitating with Outplayed. But then you mentioned it, E6, you have kinda on the rock. And with that new fragger to the team of Element 6, made such a difference in their prior match day. If he can get a solid off angle and maybe force some of those teams to start fighting, granted, 20 squads left, Ring 1 just now beginning to close and have that ending. Now we have 3 minutes here. So a lot of teams, I feel like you're just going to force each other by keep seer scanning, keep the information. Diarca is going to be utilizing the EMP to kind of burn shields from other teams and level up theirs.
It's one of the important things about Crypto Watson is that you're able to evo your shields with relatively low risk and keep them topped up without a whole lot of meds. But now we, oh my lord, finally get to see the Rampart Loba mix up, and it goes crazy.
You know, we were really talking about this early on, but it was actually Ashe Loba Rampart that we were discussing. I respect the Valk positioning, but they moved straight in, and that's going to be Game of Drones. When I saw that Valk crack, that's straight on to Kinda, forcing him off that rock and nestling down with his team. They need to not only focus on taking space so they don't get walked up on, but also mitigating and not wasting their heals here.
119, that's basically a charged sentinel shot to the face that was done with 1 tap of the wingman. That an incredible turn during the course of even these intermediate level game events, as we are waiting for the rounds to continue to close before we get into the true late game. And evidently Morningstars do not have that patience. A nice little wall bounce from Mask keeps the momentum going, but Morningstars have this kill in the bag, and it's time to disengage on the other side because you are not getting your squad mate back.
Mask turning into a little bit of a mountain goat, trying to find an LOS. Nightmare has retreated into the IMC armory, saying, hey, you know, you've already got that KP from me. We're not willing to part with any more members of our team. So now it's almost as if we're looking at a stalemate. Nightmare knows to disengage, and Morningstars, well, they just get to loot up on their kill.
A nice boon, and especially one that will need to be used from the meds that you're able to grab from that body on your next rotation in, because Fish Farms is not in zone. There's a lot of open ground between you and safety. FUT even tanking some of the zone to try and find a small bit of territory for themselves. Shitfall's height, especially difficult to contest for, and that's what makes it so powerful in this mid game.
They did get punished. Now, granted, they are walking up on Vortex. If they can eliminate Vortex, who's second place overall on the day, this is a mission critical fight for them because they need to have as many points as possible if they want to find themselves in the top 10. Now, granted, Vortex Group C, double match days this weekend. They know that they're feeling confident and want to take that fight, but now Foot has been relegated to taking the lower side of Shipfall. They're playing the underneath, which can keep them out of line of sight from a lot of the teams that are in the nearby vicinity, but I would like to see them take down Vortex for that high ground.
Yeah, in a way, Vortex at least temporarily do win that fight. They don't get kills, it doesn't look flashy, but FUT don't feel comfortable pushing high ground anymore, and this is where these small victories really start to count. Instead, they've got to bunker down inside of Shipfall, wait for squads to come to them to make mistakes, if anything, and FUT are put in a passive position in a game where they would much rather be playing things on their own schedule.
Morning Stars still rotating throughout the ring. They want to keep an eye out. V2 knows they are around this area, so Sivin taking some damage. Double time is going to be activated. It's going to help boost them around the rocks, and this is rather challenging for them, right? I mean, Morning Star is very much on the outskirts. They have to navigate their way through Gale Station. Dia, what do you think is the best course of action? They don't have a Valk.
It looks like, for Morning Stars, the best course of action is not going through Gale Station, weirdly enough. They've chosen to just completely wrap around. We did say earlier that there was a lot of open ground that they'd have to cover to make it in, and they've chosen to just not participate in that narrative. Instead, moving down towards the craft that they have at Launchpad, you can persist in Zone 2 for a little while, and as long as you make it in towards the northern end of Antenna during this next zone, you do have a chance of making it into the next ring. But I have to say, Tiff, this is a risky move from Morning Stars, because if anyone sees them coming, there's a good chance that with how many squads are in Antenna, Morning Stars just disappear without ever setting foot in the next ring.
Yeah, another issue could be a mistimed med kit. Meanwhile, Nightmare Esports able to get 7 back into the fray here, just on top of Mirage Etoile, but everyone is going to see this res happening. That'll cue in their mind, hey, keep a lookout just for the right side of Gale Station. We could have a team that is down in numbers making a play, but Vortex holding the high ground from Shipfall impeccably well, just poke fighting and bullying all the teams in front of them. This could give them the potential to find some nice KP early on, but overall this is relatively healthy. We have 20 squads and we are looking down at the third ring.
Small adjustments from Vortex, itty bitty ones, have kept them with ultimate high ground as the course of this game continues. Their movements should be starting to shift in the next couple of minutes towards this eastern side, where, interestingly enough, Game and Gladiators and J-Link set up shop early. Even E6, actually, among those that have prioritized the eastern side of the zone. And this next ring pull is going to determine a lot for all of those squads in Shipfall and the associated buildings off to the north.
Well, if we're going to have an engagement on the outskirts of the ring, Reply Totem versus V2 is going to be one for the ages. We saw just how well Jazz and Co were able to perform specifically in map number 1, but Sharp does get poked. As a seer, needs to anchor the position and be able to cancel any heals to allow Jazz and Arctic the success here. So as you see, they're taking a different approach for it, but V2 says, no, we don't want a part of this.
I respect the disengage, especially because Nightmare are coming in behind them, and behind Nightmare, we have Morning Stars, and behind Morning Stars, we have Bitfix Gaming that are approaching all from this eastern side, all from Fish Farms, and the low ground just off to the west of it. Gale Station is about to be home to many more teams than they would have expected, and again, with round 3 not offering any forgiveness in this regard, there's no time to be sitting outside of zone. Every crack and crevice of Gale Station needs to be maximized if all these teams are going to survive, and I don't think that most of them will.
Reply Totem with a nice wide swing. They were able to grab a knock onto 7, which means we are looking for one remaining member of Nightmare. Arctic does get reprimanded a little bit, but is going to reposition themselves. Let's touch base with Jazz and Reply Totem with a quick listen in to hear how they're going to engage the team in front of them.
I don't even know where I'm getting shot from. Look here.
Egg.
I'm popping 4 stars. I'm coming.
Have some rocks to play here.
I'm gonna be 1A after. I'm gonna be 1A. Careful.
Yeah,
look.
down here.
Yeah, that's a solo. Scan him. Just scan him. We can drop him.
One speed.
Look for the other team. Just look for the other team, Sharp. Look for the other team.
They're fighting behind.
Hey, Arctic, I got naded. I'm not with you. They're angling you.
Yeah, careful. You need to come back.
I can't. They might.
I mean, I have 1 HP. Look at my HP.
I crack one.
Careful, Meg. We need to start fighting egg.
Yeah,
we need to
to.
the egg. No?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
It's my only.
I can drop you. I can drop you.
Egg is looking.
I
have 2 cells after this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 24 as well.
I'm gonna be 1-2 now. I'll be 1-2. I'll be 1-2.
Okay.
I have a bet.
Okay, look at zone by the way.
Yeah, we need to try and third party egg, no?
They have angle on left, on top.
Third party egg.
I think we can go egg. Yes.
I'm balling, Ben, I'm balling.
Do. Go get the top side of egg.
Yeah.
Get the top side of egg.
There's a crypto drone, by the way.
No, they're
Are you
not
on this
in
side?
egg. They're not inside. They're not, down here.
There's a team up here, though. There's a team up here third partying. They're running down.
Come on.
Can we angle from cannon?
Yeah.
Okay,
Take it.
Crack the Valk. 40 flash on the Valk, I think.
I'm playing window. I'm walking all the way up.
Yeah, it's all you.
I think we walk down to the house. I think we do fight house, no? Like, just
Yeah,
zero?
I think we need to get the KP. It's my
You're
zero.
already-
Yes.
Yeah.
They're in zero. Just come.
They're coming stairs, maybe. I'm pushing up on the set.
I'm with you, Jack. I'm with you.
I'm with you. I'm coming.
Wait,
I'm getting
it's
shot
kind
in
of
the
bad.
back.
Have to drop out. On the outside, I'm playing on the outside.
Careful! Don't go outside, Jazz. There's another team. We need to send below. We need to send below.
Yeah, I'm picking spawning. We get spawning. Yeah, wait. I'm gonna block the door. I'm popping a bat and then I come. Okay? They're fighting.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Slide inside. I'm gonna go outside.
Farm them. Crypto low, swap.
I hit two of them for like 250
Okay,
or one.
Yeah, just on. I misclicked. My nade. I think I'm inside anyway.
Maybe I can live. I think this team's still staying on the spot.
Jazz, the lone standing solo from Reply Totem. This is nothing like we didn't see in map 1. So could we see another run back? Unfortunately, no. V2 is going to cut that short. Absolutely brilliant plays by Izadan. They have been looking so clean. And you think back to the last match day that we worked, Dia. V2 was the team that had essentially cut the Fire Beaver short a multitude of times.
They get the chance once more to cut down another squad. Ascend alley-ooping right over them, but into their path. Ascend put themselves right between Game and Gladiators and V2. You know that this has to be one of perhaps your last stands as Arc Stars start to rain in around you, but Game and Gladiators holding up top with Watson fences, a Trident and a Dream seem to have kept control for now.
2R1C also with the Watson trying to navigate this rock, but there's one thing that is so hard to move around, and that is going to be the charge rifle. Every team seems to at least be running one person with the charge rifle, and it makes peeking and trying to make plays happen, especially at these times in the game, tough, because then you're literally nestled between a rock and a hard place, not where you want to be.
I think it makes me think frying pan fire as well, just a little bit of roasting at the hands of the charged rifle. Hasn't done any squad favors just yet, but Ascend continuing to set up. Game and Gladiators, these are the two squads to watch as we move into the end game, with E6 ever waiting patiently to jump in from the north. 30 seconds on this next ring close, and we are all going to explode. Everybody has been setting up their next moves for the past minute and a half, and it's all going to come to a head right now.
2R1C beginning that engagement, eliminating J-Lings, who had made such a stark rotation. Every fight that 2R1C takes from here on out will be mission to their success. You need to clean your back, but you brought up E6, Game and Gladiators. GG called this zone from the get-go, and being able to anchor it off and play it safe, you just need to withstand an EMP trying to negate, but a well-timed drone destroy is everything. Now 2R1C pushes in. This is the fight.
Another EMP!
Dude, if they're gonna take out all the fences, Dia, what are they gonna do? They need to capitalize on it.
2R1C didn't get it. E6 certainly did, though. And now ANC outplayed, start pushing up onto the Game and Gladiators. 2R1C gonna take it into their own hands and turn around for the defense. Can they do it?
Yushako with the gold PK, gonna throw down some immense damage, but it's not gonna be enough. Now Forfeit, a sliver of health. We know that Caustic is gonna be from Element 6. They have been waiting. They wanted to make this play. Kinda, unfortunately, falling, and it's gonna be Ascend that survives the gauntlet on the outskirts. This is what they need. Now teeing up against V2, who took the space early on, and have a Watson gen to boot.
V2 have been waiting for their time, but good Lord, Ascend. They don't even take damage in that last fight. That is the killer instinct that we have seen take Ascend to nearly an international victory, but it will crush here locally in EMEA in game number 3 of Stormpoint.
Ascend knew what they had to do throughout all of our early game fights. Now, granted, we had 20 squads going into ring number 3, and you just see in the elim feed, Ascend starts ticking away. Ascend took down Game of Drones, and they just kept moving forward, and they navigated that so well. Of course, Kashera on the crypto with the well-timed EMPs. Do you expect anything else?
Oh my god, there was just so many EMPs thrown at this single Watson squad that I'm sure the Gaming Gladiators were like, will somebody please pay attention to anyone else? And it's the curse of a position like that, because you and I were talking about it for a very long time. Gaming Gladiators put themselves basically where the zone was ending for a very, very, very long time. And it was a matter of when the game would come to them, when every other squad who knew what they had to do, what their plans of attacks were, would eventually collapse on them, and they didn't come out on top.
That's the tough part of trying to reign supreme in the God spot, whether you take it too early or you take it too late, but you have to be able to defend it. But let's bring back in Rain Day. I know you've got a lot to say about what we just witnessed. Share it back on top.
Yeah, you know, and V2 and Ascend find themselves in similar positions. It was nice to see V2 make a little bit of a redemption run to just get back into a game that maybe in game 2 they could have been in that same spot, maybe even winning with how well they were playing. But clearly the performance in game 2, a top 3, now a top 2 in terms of placement. We'll see what they did in terms of kills. It's now the story of Ascend going back to back in terms of getting in those top 2 finishes and now winning. And I think Ascend answered a lot of the questions there that I had raised of them in game 2. Can you win this open fight? Can you somehow take it to a team that has the malleable cover that a Caustic provides when you don't? And it's all about positioning. It's knowing the game better. It's utilizing that EMP. It's getting the first shots off. Ascend did all of that and a little bit more. And you got to give credit to post-kill pressuring with the bow. I did like what I saw. And going through the highlights as well, I'll give it back to you, Tiff. Walk me through what you saw over the course of game 3 that stood out.
A lot of things. 2R1C mirroring Aurora, stepping in and taking their survey beacon building and holding out on that, denying a lot of teams access to being able to get that map room scan early on can cause a lot of chaos. So then you see Aurora making a play, trying to eviscerate the teams in Gale Station, and it was just an all-out brawl, Dia.
Yeah, everybody trying to jump into Gale Station was the downfall of so many teams. Even Morningstars, who tried to disengage, tried to move their way through Antenna, ended up bringing Bitfix back with them into whatever on earth this was. Reply Totem walked in, and I know we heard misclick, but that is not a good feeling to walk down into 3 people who are ready to take you on, as Ascend so certainly were, and even in this endgame fight. What really stood out to me, Rain Day, was that they essentially had the same game plan as they did in game number 2. Take the fight, make your way into second place, and then turn around and hope you can win. And this time they had high ground, they had all the tools necessary with a boat check even in hand, and they take first place rather than second.
Well, what is great is that a team like Ascend are a example for the rest of the lobby trying to make things happen in these last 2 days, which is, how do I make sure I am consistent? How do I get points pretty much all the time and give myself a chance to win? A lot of these teams, they're running out of steam too early in these lobbies. And I think Ascend is just a great, poster child of this idea that they're always in a good spot towards the end of the game. They may not win, that can haunt them, but hey, they'll give themselves a chance, and that's more than some of these teams can say. I know a player who is always trying to give himself a chance, though, in terms of taking the dub. You might find him planking on one of our old sets when I was casting him win a world championship in another esport. You might find him on the streets of London looking very suave, but right now you find him in his chair. Phoenix, what's up, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. It's good to be here.
So, Faye, let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing in today's matches. I know you haven't seen the end of this match yet. We're going to show it to you in a second, but just as an interview, what have you been seeing so far today?
I've seen very similar zones to the last week that we played in our match days, and I think teams are recognizing as well the positions where teams won from and took them earlier even than last week. I think teams are starting to learn more about the rotations and the zone knowledge, and that's also why I think Ascent is doing really well, because that's what they do. That's what they're great at. They always perform playing that playstyle, and it just shows exactly that they are still consistent at it.
Well, it's paying off, and it's really good to see Ascend kind of find that final form that we had seen in Split 1. A lot of teams seem to have struggled at the beginning of Split 2, and you mentioned they're starting to recognize those zones. I know, what are some of the challenges that you with Horizon Union have been working through? You guys found yourself in the top 10, lands on the horizon, some things that you guys might be working towards to kind of keep that success going forward.
If there's anything I can learn from the last LAN is that the teams that can play with confidence no matter what happens will be the ones that come out on top in the end. And I think that's why TSM, they were dominant throughout the entire year. And they were extremely confident. And that's why I think they won the Split 1 LAN as well. And that's something we have to work towards. We are a new team. This is the first time for us being towards the top in our region. Our region hasn't performed in international competition yet. So we have to overcome that and also think ahead a little bit. And I think during that break, we kind of misjudged on how to practice. We just need to work as a team and start to work on our synergy more so we can go toe-to-toe with these top teams and actually beat them in the fights. And yeah, I think every team should start working towards that.
You mentioned that a lot of the zones that you're seeing today, you've also seen in the past in your own games, and Season 16, in large part, saw the introduction of new end zones that we hadn't seen before, and as a result, we've seen a lot of people experimenting with different solutions, whether it be the Catalyst to wall things off, whether it be the Rampart that we're seeing a bit here in EMEA and increasingly in North America. But what's your poison when it comes to these end games where you do have to go out into the open? How do you navigate that as a competitor, and what's the best approach for your team?
So I'm a big fan of Catalyst, first of all. I already played it in the Split 1 before all these changes, and I think she's extremely strong. What happened, kind of, I think a lot of teams like to copy the top teams, right? Like, let's put it straight up. TSM played Catalyst early. Everyone wanted to play it, I'm going to be honest. So I started to notice that, but people realized that to shoot the diamonds, like, you can use a seer on your own team to counter an enemy catwall. You don't have to necessarily go through the catwall. And in game 1, you can see how effective a Catalyst can be, though. You can run through enemy spikes, you can run through enemy walls without being punished, and that's exactly what they were doing. And how Jazaz won the first game as a solo. Without any other character, he would have lost, guaranteed. So I think Catalyst is extremely strong, but I think teams should play towards their identity, and that's a perfect example would be Alliance. Alliance has played a bunch of different legends this split alone, but they pick it with a purpose. They pick it that fits their playstyle, and they have intent behind their decisions. And I think that's great, and I think more teams should focus towards what is our playstyle, what do we perform on, and get legends that fit your playstyle. Be yourself.
Wow, that was a little bit of life advice. You started to go into some stuff that could help you outside the game as well, Phoenix. Just be yourself. Okay, you know, but I appreciate the candidness too. I want to give you a chance to look at this final circle. You haven't seen it yet, but this is how the game finished. I want to get your thoughts, and almost you can walk us through what you're seeing here. It was Ascend and V2 who would ultimately go down to the wire, but just give us your thoughts on what you're looking at here.
So what I can see early on, the position from 2R1C is a position that J-Links took very early on. Most teams like Ascend loves to play that spot because you are the last one. Once you win the fight on the hill, you have prime position. However, this one shifted more towards the east, towards the nut in the water side. And I know that GG was playing there early, and they left the nut because there's not a lot of cover there in the water. And I think 2R1C had the right decision here to go aggressive, to start working it before the zone was pressuring them out. And I think Ascend just capitalized off it. Ascend is a very patient team. They will let the other teams make mistakes before they have to make the mistake themselves. And there was just so many teams, and they get that information with crypto, of course. So there are so many teams, and they know that they have to fight early on. And they could just play passive, let it all happen. And then in the end game, they have the high ground here. However, I would say they are actually at a disadvantage. I think V2 didn't realize the position that Ascend was in, and Ascend punished them off it.
It felt like that could have been a definitely V2 in the open air or in the open water, maybe kind of guiding Ascend to make a push that, again, we've seen them have trouble with their lineup, not having a Catalyst, not having a Horizon, no burst mobility of any kind or utility outside of holding. But it did work out for them. Ascend on top, big 25-point game. 2R1C, you had mentioned them getting aggressive. Those kills pay off. They'll take second overall with 14 points and then lead V2 into fourth, with ANC outplayed into third. As we transition to Phoenix, you can see this and you can see the back half. What's the biggest story for you? Is it how Aurora or teams like Vex maybe are underperforming today, or is it maybe some of the top end of how well V2, VCGO, teams like that are doing?
First of all, I've been surprised with Aurora this entire split because I thought split 1 they were by far the best fighting team. Something must have happened within that, like, whether it's a mentality issue or something has happened. Definitely, they are still getting the kill points. They're just like not getting them consistently enough where they are towards the top of the table. And Vex, I wouldn't be too worried about. Vex is qualified for LAN. They are an extremely good team, and I think right now their focus is towards LAN. So I'm not too worried about Vex performance. Yes, it's surprising to see them towards the bottom of the table, but I'm not worried about them underperforming or anything. What I am worried about is that the teams that are near me in the standings are actually doing really good as well. They're getting some good games in. And I have to start worrying about my spot here on the leaderboard a little bit.
Well, here it is after all, and you did mention it. It's kind of a nice segue before we let you go, just the fact that you guys are sitting in 7th right now, but of course, you've already got a game in hand. So you've got one more match to play. That is tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting showcase because you can't quite settle. You're in a kind of uncomfortable spot where you still have to do stuff, but you're still ahead of a lot of the pack. You can't take your foot off the gas. We know that qualifying for LAN has been such a big thing for you. You made it because of a few teams, Fire Beavers, Aurora specifically, that could not make it in the last LAN. I know you want to earn your spot there this time around. Final thoughts, Phoenix. Thank you so much for joining us and what you're looking forward to for tomorrow. Can we get a little sneak peek?
Well, obviously, yes, we are not qualified yet, and I will always have the mentality that unless I'm mathematically fully qualified, I am not qualified. So I will be putting in all my effort and my time, everything into it because I do want to qualify. And I also think that we as a team have deserved it. We have played extremely well early on in the split. We had a rough couple of weeks, and that's completely on us. No one else to blame. You know, you have full control of your destiny, and I'm ready to take it. I'm going to be there at LAN again.
Well, hey, just be yourself. Take your own advice. I agree with you, and it's always great to chat with you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Phoenix, for the halftime. That was awesome, man.
Thanks for having me. I love being here.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon. Make sure you hang out with Phoenix and watch the games tomorrow as they go for their last one in Groups B versus C to try to qualify for the regional finals, which they surely will be in. Still hoping for LAN. And if you're hoping to get into the action of the ALGS, there's a chance. The Challenger Circuit registration is open May 2nd. So make sure, in about 3-4 days from now, you are ready on the computer. Also, opens May 23rd for Challenger Circuit number 4. It's going to be a fun time. We are ready to get going here. Dia, you are going to take a break. I'm going to actually do a little bit of casting with Tiff here. And that means that we also get to see the transition from Stormpoint to World's Edge, which usually is a different game. And if you've waited for your team today after 3 to start picking it up, this is the time. We expect that changes will happen, but also a team like Ascend who has done well. And maybe my only criticism is out in the open. Do you have that same level of veracity of finishing power and lethality as you would in a building with the Crypto and a Watson? Well, now they certainly will. A lot more buildings, a lot more inside finishes in World's Edge, and that will change the game, certainly, Tiff.
Well, I think Ascend is definitely looking to run their momentum forward. I just feel we were watching them in scrims this week, and it almost seemed like a completely different Ascend. Just listening to the comms, it wasn't as, I don't know how to describe it, thrilling, excited. It seemed like they were a little bit down, if that was to say. And I feel that coming off this 25-point game, things have to be looking up in their mental for this.
3 more games to go, and it is really good to think about it in terms of the teams that are playing well. Phoenix mentioned it, VCGO having a really good day. This is a team with 2 match days today and tomorrow, and they're behind. If they get a 25-point game here, if they somehow win, they will actually push themselves in a position to be ahead of Horizon Union. Just a reference as to what Phoenix was saying. Some of those teams behind him having a good day. Starting to fight too, and Foot also behind Horizon. So yeah, a lot of scary elements going on, Tiff. But that's what makes this exciting. You never know what's going to happen until these final 3 games get underway. And Game 4 about to kick off now.
Split 2 has been one for the ages for Apex comp. We had the legend classification, the survey beacons, the ring consoles, the meta is shifting, we've got Rampart, and a lot of our teams are starting to find their identity. And it's better late than never, especially when you have Phoenix on the line. He's like, they're actually doing well. I'm nervous. You said it, Foot, E6. E6 came into today 9th place. Foot tied for 10th. Horizon Union just a shy 6 points away from them.
And the thing he should be rooting for is what's happening on the top end. Ascend, taking all those big points and just running away with it at this point. And I think that that could happen. 2R1C also in that position. Reply Totem's fallen by the wayside after getting a big win. But a team like that, Reply Totem, who even if they win, are so far behind that 64 points with their respective 27 in the league standings. Even if they win, they're not really a challenge. So that's someone else you would be happy to have points go to. It all is a little bit of a math game, if this, then that game in Apex Esports right now. And that's why we're keeping you up to date with it. As Game 4 of World's Edge begins, you see the teams out of the drop ship starting to loot. And boy, in the center of it, in the center of the circle, Aurora. They've desperately needed something to go their way. It hasn't. Maybe this is the start of it.
Yeah, Harvester, Thermal Station, 2 POIs, 2 teams that desperately both need a ring console and a survey beacon, so they'll have access to the information that will give them solid rotations. And LCDF, Foot Esports, splitting Lava City and Big Mod, and Ascend electing to go Dome, your map 2 winners, starting things off with 2 blues and a purple. This is nice, right? You immediately toss that ultimate accelerant to Posty, who with 1 charge of an ultimate accelerant gets that interceptor pylon. They know that.
Well, take a look at your beautiful stats running here from our production side of our pick rates for match 4. Seems like Valkyrie, Seer, and Bangalore certainly staying on the top. You wonder if you'll see these two teams, 2 characters specifically, Tiff, ever drop out of that 75, 85 range as the meta kind of keeps a relatively similar identity. You kind of swap it with the Bang, and I bet we'll see on the other page of it a lot of split characters in that 40%. You see Catalyst at 35, Watson 25. Not many crypto teams, but you know Ascend is one of them. And 2R1C, the other one.
2R1C finding some poke damage from the sky, but it's Aurora. We know and love their fighting capabilities, but things haven't been working out for them. Sunset already falling. Cleveland Ranches need to step up. Cleveland's alive, and he does it! Nightmare Esports down. Raindad, my apologies. This is what we wanted.
Oh, this is what we wanted, but is it what Aurora wanted? This has to be one of the best Dark Veils ever. I mean, it's got to send them into the Twilight Zone and give them time to come back, but it's not. It's not at all. And Start a Fight Esports starts a fight right when Aurora wanted to end one. And that will be the story of Aurora this season. Sunset, he will fall. That might be Aurora out. I'm not sure if he got taken outside or if that was just a finish off that we saw in the kill feed. We will confirm. Yes, it seems like Aurora's still alive, but my goodness, that is not a great start.
Rainday, I just get so excited, and now my heart hurts, but it's booming for Start a Fight. They needed to do that. It was a perfectly timed third party, and you can't fault them for doing what they want. And Aurora just unfortunately caught another short end of a 3v3 isolated fight that is no longer isolated. In Apex, when you think about the engagements that you're going to take, you have to realize how much time do you need to reset after an engagement before that third party comes? And there was nothing they could do.
Tough spot to be. And maybe to be continued. But it is looking dismal. I'm starting maybe to lose a little bit of hope in that one. But we'll still keep our eye on it. Vexed as well. They had a slow start, but in many ways, with the Gibraltar, going back to the old Matafe, IGLing from the Gibby, a support character, and one of the only support characters being played here in this current meta, alongside a Caustic and a Valkyrie. You have to wonder, you know, a very interesting approach. Is this testing in a high-level lobby for something that could work at LAN? Is this testing for something that could work at regional finals? It is a bit presumptuous, to say we're already there, we're already at the big event, but I also think if you can do it, it's good to get some practice in. It's good to test some things in the most serious environment possible where teams are truly doing everything they can just to get into the big show.
Yeah, it seems to me that a lot of teams are focusing forward. Meanwhile, GG meleeing their teammate to get them out of vantage sight from that team, but unfortunately still taking some damage. Jay Ling's also eliminated early on here from the first match on World's Edge, and Artico forced to throw up the Dark Veil for them to potentially run to cover. You only get 25 seconds here though before that goes down, but Hardeki able to make it inside to Harvester, Artico, and Leogri not too far behind them.
Tyler FPS and Unlucky, 2 of our top 10 high performers in kills over the current Split 2 season. They'll add at least 2 more as Lasita France was eliminated there. And that's nothing to slouch at as well. Psychbot, an incredible 1v1 player too, but Tyler FPS Unlucky maybe even on a different level. Morning Stars, they need some points, and you can tell the pace has shifted dramatically, Tiff. Things are going at 100 miles an hour here. Morning Stars, Sivin trying to do something crazy. It won't be done though. 2R1C continues with the kills. They're in 6th place. They're going to add more to the tally.
Phoenix gonna be feeling the burn right there, knowing that 2R1C is at their heels, but here comes the perfectly timed third party from GG. Some beautiful shots out of Hardeki or Hardwig today, and a wide swing to find the nice initial knock. Now they should be able to clean this up.
And look at this, Gaming Gladiators maybe starting to find some rhythm. It was a strange event not having Gaming Gladiators around, not having Hardeki. In fact, the story of this team making it into the Sweden land just last year, and then all of a sudden kind of falling by the wayside, just not getting the results they wanted. It turned into a terrible Split 1. They didn't qualify for the Split 1 land, and now coming back out of obscurity almost with a vengeance. Gaming Gladiators has really put on a solid performance, winning match day, I believe number 5 it was, A versus C, and then placing quite well, I think 7th place in the last match day, number 7. So they have continued to be a threat late in this season, Tiff, and I think that's got to be a fan. That's got to be at least good for fans of Hardeki wanting to see him back in the big stage.
Oh, I'm excited to see him on the big stage as well.
Hardeki,
Hopefully
man.
they can get there. You know, we were talking about their performance, and he was kind of reflecting on things back in December, and it's good to see them start to find success. Kind of the Hardeki of old, but Cleve from Aurora, still alive, where we last saw them navigating the vault cave, Ascend, get the map room scan, and then immediately take the buildings outside of Thermal. So they need to set up for that long game rain day, and we saw just how well they played map 3. But moving on over to World's Edge, where do we think they're going to go from here?
You know, I think when you consider that this is probably a stronger map for Ascend, I think they're just going to continue to run away with it. Their fundamentals are so strong, and what I mean about that is they just give themselves every opportunity to succeed. They are not the best team fighting squad. They are not the squad with, you know, Vexed, with Tyler FPS Unlucky, both of them in the top 10 kills. Fire Beavers, you know, leading those top 10 kills. With Alliance, with that crazy fragger. They're all 3 good, solid players who know the game well, who make smart decisions, and who work together. Because when you look at this lineup, this would be a hard lineup, I think, for a lot of teams to play. You got a Crypto, you got a Watson, you got such team utility and synergy that needs to be at a high level for those 2 players, those 2 characters to succeed, that I think you have to give up some of your individual aggressiveness and give up some of your individual identity, and Ascend do it wonderfully. So I really think that this could be a redemption arc for them in Split 2, losing out narrowly in Split 1. But today, I don't see anybody stopping them unless something drastically changes.
Speaking of drastic changes, Foot Esports nearly mirroring Gaming Gladiators, able to get the Valk ult rotation off without any real reprimanding. They don't take hardly any damage, and being able to move here at this portion of the game, you can see they have that next ring scan available to them. They're calling out a team nearby coming out of that tunnel, and that's where we last saw Cleve.
That's right. That tunnel's got a lot of action going on right near Harvester as well. One of the interesting things, too, I didn't want to point out as well, Tiff, now that I was on the topic of Crypto and Watson, is just the fact that they're getting that recon scan from the survey beacons. They're also getting the ring console scan from controller, having the Watson and the Crypto being a part of the new recon class alongside Seer. So in many ways, you think they're giving up some of that info from the traditional Seer and maybe even a Catalyst that we've seen with Bangalore paired with Valkyrie. But no, they're really keeping up pace just in a different way. And I think that's one of the benefits to running this composition with the Crypto Watson, where they kind of used to almost overlap as these are two defensive characters. No, now I think they really do have their own identities in a nice way. So kudos again to Respawn and the Season 16 classes. I think we've just gotten way better. And to Phoenix's point, allowing people to play to their identity and not just the meta. That's happened way more this season.
Well, when I think of Crypto, I immediately think of Kashera. And I looked back at the pick rates for this season to kind of reiterate your point. Crypto Valk Watson, up until this match day, had an 8.45% pick rate. That is so minimal compared to individual legend stats. Seer has a 77% pick rate, and that's post nerf.
Yeah. I mean, that just says to, oh boy, bloated kid. Bloated shot right there. Beautiful headshot from distance. What's that, 400 meters? My goodness, maybe even 500 with a heady and the skull piercer. Now showing what he could do with the longbow. Not a weapon we see too often in competitive nowadays, but when you're hitting your shots, it's right up there with the best of them.
It's definitely tippable, especially with the skull piercer on it. I feel like Noth is working towards his sniping montage, and if the game goes well and can connect some headies, that's exactly what I would like to see. But my only issue here is Ascend's position now for the next ring. Yes, they have the interceptor pylon. They're going to be able to fence this off, but with teams surrounding them on the high ground, I could only imagine they're going to get focused.
Yeah, and Ascend's still here. They've moved, like you said, out of that building. Watson kind of makes her own cover. The issue is surviving this onslaught where teams start to slowly move in and try to get aggressive. And you also have to pay attention, you know, if there is 2R1C still in this, whereas you could actually see Aurora still in this, ratting it out. Just a good thing to head up. And I don't think 2R1C is. You just got to worry. There's 3 cryptos in this. That's really the only thing that can mess up this hold. And I'm not sure if the 3rd crypto is alive. 2R1C seem to be out. And so that will leave Ascend free for now as things start to get contested and congested at Harvester.
Ooh. Thinking back to where I've seen this zone before, Rain Day, is all the way back on match day number 1 in APAC North. It happened on the 2nd game, pulled out of Harvester between staging, and it was one of the nastiest things. Speaking of nasty, we got Bitfix Gaming trying to defend their space here on the map with Tricks already down, Cracked, forced to take the heal, not able to join the fight, but able to get it off just in time for Zerafer to be able to trade that out. This is beautifully done. They're trading the heals, and you can play your teammates knockdown. You see that Tricks has kind of moved back, and they're going to actually try to stick the res.
And this is going to be a good pull or a bad one. We'll see in about 30 seconds because it's either going to go towards Harvester. It's going to pull all these teams fighting right now out into the open and Ascend kind of in the middle, keeping track of it to be able to adjust either way. Zerafer's worried about getting out alive on this one, though. He's just going to get that shield battery. Precious seconds and a precious climb, holding angles for his team. Not going to spot anything out, but these moments of life are maybe all that you need, all that Bitfix Gaming needs to turn this around in game number 4.
Playing patient. They have the ring at their back. V2 also at their back, but it's Foot Esports, right? They're going to be really aggressive. They want a piece of this. If they can make their way into Harvester while all of these teams are fighting, you can see Liffin and Taylor are kind of taking that cheeky off angle to see if maybe they can catch someone. Sure, Liffin is going to get cracked immediately, which is going to give Bitfix, hey, this is an opportunity that we can actually push upon. I only saw 2 because they were split.
Bitfix getting aggressive, and just as we had called that zone, it pulled well out of Harvester. Ascend still on the low ground, slightly in it on the outside, and Bitfix trying to climb their way around. They go top, and then they hold the building, but here's the difference. They don't really have anybody who can hold. So they're going to have to try to play this one aggressive, take a spot that allows them to play in front of them and not try to get surrounded by too many angles because there's no piercing spikes, no Watson pylon fences on their end.
Yeah, the only thing Bitfix has is the Bangalore smokes available to them, and you do get a couple charges, and the smoke does last approximately 23 seconds, and that should be enough for you to make a rotation play off of, but you have to clear out your back first, and Bitfix is recognizing that is what we need to do. We need to take out V2. Beautifully done, but Foot Esports is lying in wait. They were able to get out with their life and reset.
Yeah, and this is, I think, what's made it difficult for Bitfix, because this roster is meant to be aggressive. You don't utilize the Horizon, the Bang. As much as Bang can buy you a little time, she buys you time in that open space. Inside a building, people are just running right through to you, and also probably having digi-threats. So they've got to get aggressive and set the tempo. Foot Esports, they got a little bit of everything. They'll see them coming with the exhibit, and they have the high ground, plus the catalyst. So I would back off. Doesn't seem like that will be the premier target. Foot should feel safe for now. But as we head into the other side of the zone, where it will pull from staging, it started a fight. Started this entire one, finishing off Aurora. They have stayed in that building. And they're trying to make their rotation now, but they've got a team behind them. We'll see if they skyward dive. They are skyward diving away, and so start a fight now. Have a very difficult rotation. Let's go into a listen in and see how they make it out, if they can make it out through this.
Walk up right side. We can take this area.
I need to pop a bat. I need to pop a bat.
Follow me.
Behind us, behind us, behind
Yeah,
us.
I see. We can flank it maybe. We need to push forward. We need to push forward.
Right. Yeah, I'm walking up. On the left.
120. Dead.
Swing this guy.
With you.
Yeah, Simon dead.
Chill. Look at our backs now. Pivot. Wall yourself.
I can't. I had no wall.
Okay, come. Lucky, come to me. Team on me.
Yeah, on you.
1 HP rampart. That.
Come on. No, I had nothing to get back. Nothing.
Start a fight, unfortunately. Start too many in that one, and it's not really their fault or their namesake. They just got surrounded. The zone is pulled, and it was actually VT who came behind them. George and Rondon Streams, who were playing spoiler to their party. Bitfix Gaming, though, we said they need to get aggressive. Well, they've got high ground now, and Gaming Gladiators goes out to Bitfix. Oh, boy. They have fixed this bit of gameplay to be right where they want it. Bitfix Gaming making a little run here.
Game of Drones on the backside of your left screen, trying to clear out their backside. Matafe takes to the low ground on this engagement with Vortex. We talk about the fighting capabilities of Vex. We know they had Gibby, but now Unlucky and Tyler are last alive, and they look to clean up Matafe on the low ground. They don't have any time to reset. They just have to focus on shield pops, but now Bitfix is getting focused.
One of the questions I asked was, is Vortex CGO really going to set themselves apart in EMEA? Not just once, but twice. Bitfix Gaming looked to stand in their way and say, not if we're alive. Element 6, Game of Drones, also with a part to play. 4 squads left here. BCG on the low ground. They're going to skyward dive. Is this too early, Tiff?
They're being focused by every single team in the lobby, but look at the rampart setup on the other side of this ring. You have to focus. Yes, they're immediately going to be denied that rotational ability, so they're not going to be safe here. 3 squads remaining. This is, in my opinion, Element 6's game to win. They cleared out their back. They came through the tunnel from Landslide, and now they're pushing forward. The issue is Bitfix is going to be hard focusing E6, which will allow Game of Drones essentially a free 3P.
More Horizons than we've seen in all of this meta right now. 2 fighting on the same team against each other. Bitfix Gaming have had a lot of momentum, and I think that might be their biggest benefit alongside E6, but right now they're in a tough spot. Rondon, Jules, they're holding this angle with the beautiful Rampart shields as well, set up perfectly. Element 6 on the other side. Game of Drones, Bitfix, and E6. Who fights who? And oh, Game of Drones make it a little easier. This should be Bitfix now going on to Element 6, and Game of Drones has a chance to maybe clean up, but it's BFG who get pushed by Game of Drones.
BFG is the center of the sandwich with Trix last alive, and Jules bringing in the RE45, coming in 17th place, everything that they need. But K-Swinny, the IGL for Element 6, takes to the skies via the grav lift and is going to completely eliminate Bitfix. Now turn your attention to Game of Drones, but Slayers, you gotta stay alive.
Oh, and he's not gonna. It's K-Swinny up to doing it all, and that's it. Element 6 take game number 1 on Storm Point, game number 4, on World's Edge, game number 4 on the day. What a performance from E6 to battle from desperation.
The moment they cleared their back from that tunnel, won them the game. And honestly, with Bitfix focusing E6, but then turning their tide because Game of Drones pushed a little too early. Yes, the sandwich had to occur. And Dia, welcome back, because I want to hear your thoughts on that end game situation, especially with E6.
I was so flustered, and honestly, I think so were Bitfix, right? You called it. Element 6 had a really good position because of this sandwich that was created, and Bitfix couldn't commit to either side. They were trying to play both, and Game of Drones struck first. Really good setup with the Rampart, even off of the low ground, and from then on, it was just dominoes falling into each other while E6 got to execute perfectly.
I also thought that those two teams are the teams that went through the most to get there, Bitfix and E6. Even though Game of Drones came and maybe just had a better position, what I felt was that the tone that was set by those two teams ended up being in their favor, and that is going to show that there are different types of Apex that can win. And you sometimes sitting up on top, Foot Esports, great example. They had that position. You know, Bitfix bides their time, and they take over that top spot where Foot Esports is because they are setting that tempo. And I like that we're seeing teams figure it out, especially on World's Edge. They started out with 2 points going into this. I think now they're probably going to be around 15, 16 at least. And if you can repeat that over the next 2 games, you're going to be in a position to definitely be in a top 10, maybe even, you know, a top 5 if you continue it, Tiff.
That's what you need to do, right? We talked about Cracked being the new member of Bitfix, and ever since then, I feel as if the stocks for Bitfix Gaming are on the rise. It has been so great to see the addition and how everything's been working for them. And honestly, that cluster of fights that started with, you know, Vex going down, Vortex looking towards that, Bitfix able to clear out Foot Esports, it was just a big chaotic mess. And all of that allowed Game of Drones and E6 to clear out their side and take space.
Yeah, and as we look at these highlights too, you know, I'm eating a couple of my words around the horizon because clearly it is working. A lot of high ground there really made the difference, but this is really what made the difference for Start a Fight. The team in this position, Start a Fight, ended up going all the way towards the final 7 with plenty of kills. They take down Aurora early on, Dia, and they keep the pressure wherever they fight.
And Start a Fight were, of course, one of my teams to watch. They were, in fact, the team that I picked to watch during the course of today's games. And if you are able to continually finish in the top 7, you are going to be okay. Start a Fight to meet that magic number that we talked about towards the beginning of the broadcast, those 77 points. Just need 12 points a day, an 8th place finish or better, and that at least they have been doing very consistently.
Tiff, I gotta say that when I look at this game, you really can tell, and those who've been watching this whole broadcast, how different World's Edge is in terms of a pace and how these teams are able to manifest their game and play style. What's the key to keeping it consistent over 6? Because that tends to be the problem for our teams who are just on that edge of being a top tier squad like Ascend.
It seems to me that if you can make something work out of a game that you know may be not a good game for you, right? You start getting that zone information, and E6 had to work their way from Skyhook West in Trials to Harvester, which is rotating only through half the map, and overall, not too bad. You come down through Checkpoint, Landslide, and just keep working your way forward, but maybe that zone isn't going to pull into your favor. You're gonna have to navigate some disgusting choke points on the map and know that there's a lot of good teams that you're gonna have to fight through. It's how do you mitigate placement, right? You might not get the KP you want, but getting those placement points and just living your life, I think is that.
Well, and Dia, that's a BR too, right? I mean, not to get too basic at a high level stream. We know everyone watching knows Apex at a very good level. There are some new viewers as well, but being able to manage a bad situation is almost the tell of a team that's invariably going to be successful at a high level.
It really is, and one of my favorite things about Apex Legends is that there are always variables that you can't control. You can't always determine what comes into your game and what doesn't. Sometimes somebody in front of you has a Kraber, sometimes a Skynade lands, whatever it may be, even if it's a zone pull coming away from you. that ability to mitigate how much impact that has on your game plan, to be flexible and to shift around that, is a quality that top IGLs and top teams have with their faith in the game plan and their ability to adjust it over time. It's what separates veteran squads and teams that do well over time from those that maybe have just a hot day here and then. And so I'm really appreciating watching, I'm going to reuse the word, veterans really be able to show us how much that word means in Apex Legends, because it's more than in other games.
Yeah, there's a reason you want veteran people who have been there before, who have played in these situations, who have taken the lumps, and then obviously now know that, hey, that's just a part of the process. You're going to have a bad game, but you got to keep adjusting, and we're here to tell you it's going to be okay. A lot of new players coming into our scene all the time, and that makes it exciting too. Can they step to that level early? I know we haven't seen the standings yet. I'm waiting patiently for that one. I also know that we have a final circle usually that we show here as well. So one of those is going to come up. I'm not sure exactly which one it is going to be, but let's take a look at that final circle and walk it back here. Dia, I'll start with you since you were watching from the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, this was, as we talked about, that identity crisis with BitFix Gaming. They're leaving cracked against E6, and while this may work in other situations, up against the best teams in EMEA, leaving one person on the side is never the solution, and E6 get to farm things up from the low ground and arguably just play things slow. I think E6 at this point know they aren't in a winning position until they see that initial knock, and from then on, it is E6 controlling space. It is them trying to take as much as possible, and even now, when we see this get a little too close range, Swinny disengages using the gravity lift to bring him back to the team, knowing that at this point, BitFix is no longer the focus. It's game of drones afterwards.
And it's a little bit of a bait and switch, right? Because as Swinny goes up and that player starts looking at Swinny, you can see down at the bottom, kind of just shoots up with the Nemesis and gets that clutch damage to finish off one of the members. It really works out well for E6. Another story, losing Graceful after the addition of Graceful through this season, having to adjust now with Kaino to find that rhythm with Slayers and K-Swinny. It's nice to see them maybe getting it here. BitFix Gaming, Game of Drones. They'll round out our 2 and 3 spots. It's Vortex CGO. Don't quite finish it off, but get a nice score of 9. And Vex Gaming turn it up a little bit. It goes from low to medium, you know, in terms of the kitchen stove. We'll see if they can get it on high in these next 2 games as Gaming Gladiators and Foot and Start a Fight continue to get points throughout the day. Moving on to our bottom, though. V2 still won. Aurora still barely there. And Reply Totem, Passion, 2R1C, teams that have had moments today, not able to replicate it in the first game on World's Edge. It is a difference, Tiff, to play on these maps. Somebody starts a little better, somebody doesn't, but a very familiar top 5, Ascend, Element 6, Vortex CGO, look at them. They're still in a position to win this day. Reply Totem, after that first win, they've gained 9 points over the last 4. And then Start a Fight Esports. They're in 30th tied with V2. Tiff, just impressions after it stands with 2 more to play.
I'm just smiling. I really am. We talked to K-Swinny after the last match day where they finished second, knowing that they had the wherewithal to get to first place, and seeing them just 9 points outside with 2 maps remaining. I hope they do it, right? You have that new third. You talked about Graceful stepping away for a bit and Kinda stepping up. All of the new young talent that is in the Apex scene. I mean, Yolu, 17 as well. I think he just had a birthday. He's on V2, Kinda 17 from Spain. This is exciting for Apex.
It is exciting, and it's exciting in a very interesting way. There is not this youth professional scene. There's just playing games, and all of a sudden you are in a pro league if you're good enough. And unlike a lot of traditional sports where, you know, you kind of get groomed to know how to play and what it takes to be a professional at the next level, or to be going to play college ball, then to the amateurs, then to pro. A young person stepping up, fitting into that role, having the maturity, the professionalism, the discipline, that is something to note. And congratulations to all the pros who have been able to do that so far in our Apex scene. We've got 2 more to come. We're going on a break real quick. It'll be Dia and Tiff to finish off our last 2 games of match day number 8 in EMEA. We'll see you right after this. WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Monster Energy, the official energy drink of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder that this isn't the ALGS without you. Everybody watching, we appreciate you. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. We've got only 2 games left in match day 8, and match day 9 is tomorrow, and then we've got a regional final. It is exciting, so make sure to follow us on all our Play Apex socials and to stay tuned with all the action before LAN. Of course, my name is Rene, and I'm about to throw it to our 2 casters, Tiff and Dia, to take us into it. Tiff, Dia, how you guys feeling? Game 5 and 6 underway.
Thank you so much, Brain Day. You know I am really excited, Dio. This is the last 2 games that we will be casting together for the regular season, and we know everything is on the line for the players, so let's get it.
Yeah, as we do jump into these next 2 games of World's Edge, it bears mentioning that despite the fact that this is typically one of those maps where things get more controlled, if you're in Group A, maybe you're letting loose a little bit. You're hungering for those points. You're seeking them out wherever you can. Even squads like 2R1C currently sitting at 8th coming into the day still need to be absolutely certain that come the end of the season, they are qualifying for LAN, because that's what the entire regular season is about.
Wait, it's about LAN, Dia? You're joking, right? No, I'm just kidding. Of course, everyone wants to make their way to London, and as our teams are finding their way, Ascend benefiting from that jump line, right? They immediately get to take to Dome. So let's see where that ring is going to pull. We had a rather central one that favored Aurora off rip. And I want to talk to you a little bit about them, Dia, without kind of overreaching into that subject. They're winning their first initial fights. It's just the momentum that they need to carry forward from that isn't going their way.
It's definitely a problem of approach into these next couple circles. Aurora, as we talked about earlier, the importance of game plan, of IGLs that can adapt, have been lacking in that ability to shift up their game plan when it does come to the immediate aftermath of the first fight. They're very mechanically talented. It is what got them in a position where they qualified to our first LAN, and yet coming into Split 2, be it the meta shifts, whatever it may be, because there are a variety of factors as there are in any BR, things have changed for Aurora, and the grasp they once had on the teams in this region has loosened significantly, while others seemingly have taken that step up. I'm thinking of Vex landing just off to their south over in Lava Siphon. They've got a ring console, and they know where this one's ending, all the way up in the north near 2R1C and Morning Stars, with Bitfix Gaming having a pretty nice rotate in, as do V2 on immediately the east and west sides, respectively, of Zone 2.
As I'm looking to this, the only thing I can think of is Ascend doesn't typically land Dome. They had prior landed north on World's Edge, and this would have been such a good zone for them because they've won. If this pulls towards Fragment West and Epi and exactly where 2R1C is, Ascend has taken a victory in a similar situation.
Yeah, I think that the big theme for Ascend today has absolutely been the avoidance of taking these fights at the beginning of their games. They know that compared to other squads, they have a lot to lose in terms of the points. They don't want to give up too much because their playoff spot is still one that could be a little bit more secure. So they're playing things slow, minimizing risk as we approach international competition. And honestly, I think it's a really wise move. Gaming Gladiators, however, are jumping in, perhaps taking a bit of a risk with an early Valgalt, not a whole lot of shields. However, they get a building just to themselves, and it's a nice one.
Hey, look, if you're already kind of staking your claim to this building here in Fragment West, the best thing about Fragment Zones is all of the buildings in the space and allows a lot of teams to coexist. We're talking about a game that could have the potential of 20 teams in ring number 4, but we say that and it's V2 and Nightmare that are already getting into it. You know they were vying for the survey beacon here for that information. The Dark Veil's already been expended and V2 has the inside of the building with a catalyst to reinforce.
Unfortunately enough, Nightmare shouldn't want the inside. They're putting on a little bit of pressure right now, but it's a pressure just built to keep them safe, as they're going to be allowed to coexist underneath. Perhaps not the best spot should other teams start to arrive, but one that should keep them relatively easily placed for now. As at this moment, you have the opportunity to collaborate with teams above you to keep other bigger threats at bay, say perhaps like J-Lings that are just off to the east.
Well, let's talk about that, right? Because some teams do elect to coexist and try to say, hey, we're just going to maybe not fight here until after Zone 3 because we don't want to attract the attention of the teams. And as we have still some Valkolts making their way to frag, they will have the benefit of just existing.
And it's really nice. It's actually why we're seeing so many teams do this with very few shields as well. ANC Outplayed just the most recent example that's arrived. But if you are a team that's predicting, even saying there's an off chance that this zone takes us into fragment, you want to be there immediately. There's no time to waste picking up shields around the side, because making your way into fragment later is atrociously difficult. So for teams like ANC Outplayed that are making their way in quite quickly, even for squads like Game and Gladiators that did so moments before, it's all that race against time on the off chance that all of a sudden it's going fragment and you just can't move.
Well, Izadon looking to just put the pressure on the team below, saying, I understand that you want to coexist, but I'm going to one-up you. Meanwhile, off-screen, Aurora and Ascend are duking it out. Ranches and Sunset have already found 2 knocks, and they're still incredibly healthy. So a little bit of congestion here at the Harvester, and a bit of a finish to really put the salt in the wound.
Lets us know that it wasn't even close when Aurora have the space to pull off the finisher. It's Harvester. Nobody is around to save you, but the nice thing is that Kashera plays the superhero. A big pickup there, using the drone just before it's destroyed to grab the banners of his 2 squad mates. Might just mean that Ascend get to play this out as a 3-man squad, even though they went down early.
This is why Kashera on Crypto is so impactful. This is not something that is new or recent. There are always times where Kashera is able to recover those banners and have a full reset. We've seen it on LAN, we've seen it in Split 1, we've seen it in Split 2, and now it's coming to fruition, and Lufka and Posty are coming back to join Ascend over in Lava Siphon. But I can't imagine that Aurora is going to let this happen.
I don't think so. They are down bad for points. Aurora need to be picking up steam today, and right now they are on the hunt. Balloon up from Ranches to let him land wherever he wants, while Cleve and Sunset lay down the path. This is a bit risky. You don't know what you're dropping into over here by Lava Siphon, but you can be reasonably sure that it ain't a whole lot of armor.
Yeah, I mean, Cleve at this point is basically just armor checking Lufka and Posty. They're just coming in. Lufka down to 1 syringe and a Phoenix kit, so not going to have a lot of health to boot for this, and hasn't found a gun yet. And we know that Aurora can be so aggressive, and they're actually disengaging from the fight, Dia.
One of the very few times that we see this happen in Lava Siphon, but those carts change everything. The fact that they go so quickly and are able to buy enough space between Aurora and Ascend is the difference maker, because if it's just Ascend running on foot, they do not make it out alive. So those small little armored carts that you see moving in between the little buildings in Lava Siphon manage to save an entire squad, at least temporarily, because this ain't looking too good.
Unfortunately, Kashera going to go down, and Lufka and Postkill are not going to have the heals to boot to be able to tank this zone and focus on getting the res off. So at this point, you have to play your life, even though Kashera just did everything they could to bring the teammates back. And LCDF, with the late rotation out of Geyser, are basically mirroring the position that Ascend is trying to get in. Unfortunately, Postkill going to fall to the ring as well.
And it's funny that you say as well, because that's how Kashera went down. It wasn't a bullet from anyone else. It was simply going down to just zone 1 damage. It's why these heals are so important. Having flesh meds early on in the game, or at least access to a crafter when you dip right back out of zone. Lufka has absolutely nothing right now, and with a minute left on this next zone close, with no information on what's ahead of him, Ascend's chances get smaller by the second as to how they're going to be able to access this future play.
You say Lufka has no idea what's ahead of him, but it's going to be a menacing Aurora who just eviscerated Reply Totem, who tried to rotate through Harvester. Harvester, with the ring console, with the map room scan, is now going to be in the LOS for, once again, another team.
Just Wraith things. I got to imagine that it's the Seat de France come over to follow up on what they already found in terms of their success up against Ascend. Aurora may be able to take this fight, but this is where we've talked about them perhaps struggling a little bit more than anticipated this season. It's in these secondary engagements, in the future rotations, and right now, rotations have to be on their mind. 20 seconds left to make their way into zone. Ascend have Lufka going back for the bodies. Is he going to be able to pick them up? 4 seconds left. He's not going to find post-kill, but Kashera actually will be recovered here.
That's impressive. The last we saw Lufka hurting for meds on a white shield, now on purple, getting at least 1 banner, and Aurora still alive. Resetting, utilizing the Pearson spikes to kind of anchor off space inside of Harvester, but you've got to take to your rotation. Don't worry about those secondary engagement, or even third at this point, because you already won a fight. Then you took down Reply Totem. Now focus on getting into that end game, because you need to have placement points to couple with the KP that you have earned. So last we saw Ring Dia is going fragment. Aurora's making their way through staging, potentially the vault area. What do they need to do as a Valkless comp to make it into such a contested space?
Gotta find a crafter, that's for sure. Not a whole lot of med kits on ranches, and these syringes are going to be their lifeblood, and I mean it almost literally. Aurora have very little in the way of survivability outside of this zone, although what they do have is a bit of a scan over by staging, being able to pick up the survey beacon while Start a Fight make their way down to the south through Countdown, eating shots in the back instead. Their rotation also going to be difficult, as it'll take them into the open territory that lies between Countdown and Fragment, with just a sniper tower between them. Let's see how Start a Fight navigate this.
This is what they needed to do. You cannot walk this one in, because there's going to be teams that are sitting in these points waiting for teams to come out of Countdown. And we talk about Valkyl's late game all the time, with the charge rifle being so prevalent in play, and they are completely sighted. Light, blast, they have to hit syringes. They're not be able to make this happen. Yeah, immediately going down.
Oh my god, Blast's barely able to survive, but now Start a Fight already under pressure, have Aurora coming up on them. We did say that Aurora needed meds. They not only have a crafter, they've got essentially mobile med stations right ahead of them if they can take the fight up against Start a Fight. However, Blasts pops up, takes that swing, and doesn't get punished for it, leading me to believe that Aurora are playing this cautiously.
Cautiously is what they need to do, because they have to take everything with intent. And Cleave coming in, doubling the distance, has the digi threat on the R9, and it's really tough to get good sight lines inside of the zone, and they know they're going to be reprimanded nearby with that charge rifle team, but it's giving them information as they make light work of Start a Fight.
I love the word you've been using for these charge rifle dings as well. Reprimanded is
it's
an excellent,
right?
I mean, but it's a great way of putting what's happening on our screens, because Aurora don't really have to be worried about taking that fight. It's just a charge rifle for a little bit of damage, but it is a warning shot saying, hey, just so you know, that's not going to be cool all the time. You extending this fight is going to kill you, and Aurora, playing with that knowledge, do take a fight where many others may not be able to in such a short amount of time.
Hurry, get there. This gold shield for Aurora and having minimal syringes will give them the ability to rotate through the outskirts and jump out of the choke point south of Fragment. And even if you want to rotate that shield throughout the team to enable the most out of the syringes you have, but let's check in with GG. We know they took this space early on in the game, but Game of Drones wants a piece of it now. Can they hold the rooftop coexisting? You have SMS and Vexed on the right side as well, but Vexed is pretty deep into Epi and not necessarily going to make a real play for this.
I know we get a lot of trash talk, and that's much to my entertainment all around the Apex scene, but for now, as you say, living side by side with each other peacefully does seem to be the best move. Ascend, hoping they can get in on that sweet deal. Unfortunately, lose Kashera and Vortex come in for the punish.
Vortex said, hey, we want to make a play for the top of the leaderboard today. We're sitting in third and just add some KPs. Look who has finally made their way out of zone. It's going to be Aurora. They need a little bit of time to stabilize before engaging with the teams in front of them. But you have to think, we saw this happen with Checkpoint, right? 6 to 7 teams had found themselves inside that POI knowing they needed to get out. So who was going to prioritize the end game, or who's going to go for KP here?
Game and Gladiators certainly looking for the KP. As up on height, they have every opportunity to pick off these individual members, but Aurora are the ones doing it. Aurora, who barely made it into the zone on time, are cleaning up another squad and turning right onto Vortex as well. They haven't lost a member yet, but ANC outplayed. They are gone for good in game number 5.
I'm not going to get my hopes up just yet, but everything that Aurora is doing is Aurora of the split one that we needed. They know they're going up with their backs against the wall, and they've got to make something happen. Health within an inch, a mere 25 HP for Sunset, one of them going down. Gaming Gladiators with the cheekiest of angles from the high ground. This shows you why ultimate high ground is everything in Apex.
Leogre is not messing around, and even during those final moments where Aurora were looking so good, their positioning still bit them. Game and Gladiators having such an incredible angle from above so as to punish that squad, despite the fact that they are just 2 people left alive. Hardeki no longer forming part of this roster during the course of this game, and Banner relatively unrecoverable as well. A big problem as we look towards this next zone where Game and Gladiators have no Valkyrie to move them forward.
Hear me out, Dia. Your first cast on ALGS. Hardeki in Epicenter, but Hardeki is down. So now Artico and Leogre are going to be the ones that need to clutch it up for the Game and Gladiators. But let's talk about something that was in the crafter, the Moby. There's a good chance you might find one, but you don't have any time to check the boxes. And SMS, Morningstar's not going to allow them to get out.
Is that a Gibraltar on my screen? Unfortunately, it's not a Gibraltar for too much longer as Morningstars go down, but a quick little wrench thrown into the plans of anybody trying to leave Fragment peacefully, and that includes Vortex, who are right next door. They lose one, and with Robin down, perhaps this is recoverable, but they need to find a way to cover this. Mobies, as you talk about, going to be super important now that we're in an end game with no real respawn beacons left. Jailings hold the last one up on height by the little pit stop we've got for our train.
We just saw the great migration of Fragment West, and now Vex Gaming looking to step into this, but this is a composition that we haven't seen since Champs in Rally. Valk, Caustic, Gibby, and now with Matafe taking that anchoring role, just knowing they've already expended the defensive bombardment, but they can default to Caustic. Bubble going out. They're going to have 12 seconds to reset this. You get the quick res, and you have a gold knockdown. This is everything Vex needs.
Absolutely gorgeous use of the Gibraltar there, waiting things out, using Tyler's Caustic to cover them on the reset. Bitfix Gaming can do nothing in the face of these chunky lads, and Vexed Gaming move to the top 6.
Look, 2/3 of Meat Mountain looking really nice. They're just missing Newcastle. If you don't know what Meat Mountain is, it's Newcastle, Gibby, Caustic, and it's a meme squad, and always an interesting time when people drop into ranked with that. But this is ALGS. This is another story. And Vex is limit testing for land, but check who has a beautiful God spot. And we've seen them play this particularly before, and it's going to be tough, but you do have the high ground. This is a playable area, and Kinda is going to find such success here with the jetpacks.
And Horizon is an integral part of being able to play this height effectively as well. Swinny taking a quick second in the face of Vex. But during this next zone close, it is going to be all about how E6 manage the lines of sight that actually have access to the top of this rock. Vex waiting on their own rotation, playing things slow and avoiding some fire of their own, are starting to set up in the mere corner of the zone that is allowed for them. But with these caustic barrels, it may very well be enough.
This free cam shot is really laying the land here. You see Vortex go on just the south side of E6, but Vexed is challenging E6 with the high ground, and now they're just being poked and prodded by every team. And with everyone carrying a charge rifle, how do you live here? And unfortunately, you can't. Vexed completely decimates them and now has cleared out their side of the zone.
This is where we talked about managing your line of sight being so important. E6 make one critical mistake and it fells all three members with, as you said, very little that you can do in the face of it. Vortex may go down as well. They've already lost one, with Robin being well and timed out, but Vex recognized that weakness and the damage they've already done, taking out EQ and looking for the next. Vortex are gone. 3 squads remain, and 2/3 of Meat Mountain keep on pushing forward.
You think to Phoenix's interview, I'm not worried about Vexed. No one should be worried about Vex unless you're playing them in the lobby, and Jaylings has been holding on to this position, trying to defend it. Nag's going to have to step back, hit that bat. It's going to take 5 seconds for him to get back into the fight, and JMW, the lone Watson, jets back into the RV, the safety by the interceptor pylon, and now you turn your attention as Passion is eliminated to a Vexed v Jaylings fight.
And let's not forget, they've got Gibby Caustic, a lot of area control right now. Vexed have already done so well today, and Unlucky taking the 1v1 with the Valk off on the side, whips out the spear, finally hits the reload and takes them down for the win. Vexed Gaming steal Game 5 from the lobby with the most unorthodox of compositions.
You have to think when you're looking at that composition, we knew it worked historically. You get a good look at the Caustic Prestige skin as well. It's impeccable. I mean, Gibby kind of looks like you, Dia. He's got a little ponytail.
That's true. I take a lot of inspiration. I wish I was as buff as Gibby, but that's a work in progress, in very little progress. Very little progress.
Dia, are you making gains? Are you making gains?
That's that might not be the word for it, but Vexstar in the points. Vexstar making gains in the points. My own gains aside, they looked really good this past game, and it was due to this quick change up that was not foreshadowed at all by the performance on Stormpoint, eh, Tiff?
No, and I had seen Matafe kind of dabble with playing Gibby and scrims. I didn't know if they would actually break it out on ALGS match day, but they could be motivated by seeing what Alliance is doing. Alliance has been limit testing their different compositions. I think they have 4 playable ones that they can break out at any given time based upon how LAN potentially plays out for them. Because you have to start thinking of the future, Dia. It's how is that meta going to continuously shift? We're seeing more Rampart Gibby teams sporadically throughout the region, which we haven't really necessarily seen them today here in EMEA, but Caustic Gibby? I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely the more aggressive iteration of that composition as well. And we've already talked about how important having a support legend can be when you've also got the ability to scan zone. But let's take a look back at how this match evolved, even up until that point, because Gibraltar, Caustic even, were only really a part of our end game considerations. Early game had nothing to do with them.
LCDF, you can be seeing here, taking down Ascend. That was such a tough engagement for them. They get the full reset, but then Aurora decides, hey, we're going to chase that a little bit, put some pressure on them to get out of dodge and move further into the zone than maybe they had anticipated. And now Aurora, as soon as they make it out of that zone, start finding a lot of success. At any point, 9 eliminations, which is on average 6 more than they had been finding throughout the beginning of our match day. But position is king, Dia.
It really is, and it was very evident for Game and Gladiators, especially on top of that building. Just even though they do go down relatively early, making their exit out of Fragment, they picked up kills that many other squads were unable to in exactly the same situation, where Vexed, of course, managed to turn their position into a really good one, playing off of the low ground, a bit defying expectations.
Yeah, you know them as someone that likes to close the distance, right? Matafe's usually the one that has a charge rifle, but putting him on a Gibby, it makes sense having that gun shield defending you a little bit to throw in maybe the shotgun, maybe an SMG, take the fights to the bubble. And look, everyone misses Gibby bubble fights, Dia, and I am one of those people that are like, I need them.
If you're confident in your shotgun play, I mean, why not? We talked about this a little bit earlier. I think it was last week, but when you do have a Gibraltar in the game, your MNK players also get a buff in a way because of that reliance on shotguns for the close range fights and the ability to reset, especially in this end game where people are starting to experiment with perhaps not running a Seer, and even considering that very long cooldown on Seer as tactical. These Gibby bubbles, the quick resets, the gold knockdowns that you talked about are very difficult to play into.
What were we talking about prior to this broadcast? We were like, hey, we're seeing Gibbies come in. That bubble only lasts for 12 seconds, and you get the buff on your fast res by 33%. I was like doing the math. You can get 2 resets in a Gibby bubble so long as no one is pushing up on you. And you couple that with the gold knockdown that Vexed had, textbook.
Very, very clean end game play from them, and a good move as well to keep their eyes constantly on Element 6, who ended up being a footnote in our end game. Even though they had a very nice position up on high ground, it was a single mistake that took them down. It was a single mistake that was punished by Vexed on the low ground, who knew that this was the squad to keep their eyes out for. Ultimately approaching from that low ground again, it was a good position once more from Vexed because J-Lings started pushing out here. J-Lings got antsy, and that same way that we talked about with the charge rifle earlier, they got reprimanded really heavily. Nags having to jump all the way back, take the reset for J-Lings, giving enough time over to Vexed to pick up an entire team wipe, bubble for a quick reset, a look around, and a continued close range engagement that ultimately won them the game.
That and the fact the ring is closing and J-Lings is on the worst side of it. So they have to push out of that home they built in the RV. And when focusing towards Passion, that gave Vexed all the time in the world to work their way up and wrap that. They bubble forward, and that's just beautifully done. And honestly, when I talk about adding salt to a wound, trying to hit someone with the Valk heirloom, I see you. I see what you're doing with a little melee for the win.
It actually hurts, and I know that it hurts for J-Lings as well, that he had time to go for the melee, reload the gun, and then find the kill. It just speaks to how much control Vexed had during that final engagement, that you're not even worried about burning time, just as long as you survive. Passion slot themselves in with a 3rd place finish, however, 9 points. Well, Vortex picking up a lot of kills, managed to steal away that 4th place spot. I would say, even though they're not in 1st, Vortex have largely continued to answer yes, an enthusiastic yes to the question we asked at the start of the broadcast as to whether they could keep it up after last week.
I'm just very impressed with the 15 eliminations, the 27-point game here from Vexed as we take a look from the 11th through 20th place, the second side of the screen. One thing I'm looking forward is Aurora. 9+ eliminations prior to going down, so double digits, 12 points. That's impressive.
is perfect from Aurora in the sense of what their game plan should be, how Aurora were expected to look from the start of the split. They're finding their footing now in the final 2 games, perhaps, of the day, in their final 2 days of Pro League. They've still got a long way to go, but Aurora can keep themselves out of relegation with enough good play towards the end of the season, and that's what I'm looking at out of this squad.
Well, let's cut on over to the series results to see just how that game panned out for them, because they need to inch their way further up, and Vortex at the top of the leaderboard have unseated Ascend, but Vexed after a 27-point game. This final match is going to be the most electrifying game of Apex that I could imagine. We have a full weekend, right? Double dose for Group C, and Element 6 wanting to win a match day as well. But Aurora finally kind of taking some strides forward. We know they can fight. We know they have the mechanical ability, but it's getting past that first initial, and look what it has done for them. Now they're about to break into that top 10.
And looking at Ascend right now, they've only increased by 1 point from this past game. So looking towards the future, Ascend very much on the ropes as we move into this next and final game of the day.
Look, well, I can't wait any longer, so I'm going to go grab a drink of water. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, match number 6.
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series. We are having a weekend full of action, but for right now, it's going to be the EMEA region as we approach the final game of the day. This is the last time we will see Group A for the regular season. So if you're a team in Group A, Dio, what do you gotta do right now?
Win now. Win now, because otherwise you may win never. That's the fear for so many of these teams as we drop in to the final game. Starting the day, Ascend, Vexed, FUT, Start a Fight, and 2R1C were and are all in the position to be considered a playoffs lock. But their performance today means so much to actually cement themselves, especially for teams like 2R1C, Foot, and Start a Fight. So keep your eyes on them as we drop into our final game.
Well, we heard it from Phoenix. He was looking at teams like 2R1C, E6, but E6 has the double match day. 2R1C is in the Group A that is finding themselves just on the bottom side of the top 10 of the match results. So this needs to be the game for them. But you think of their journey throughout Split 2, roster changes, and they've just faced the inevitable. Now they've got Thorfinn, who used to play on Reply Totem, and they've got Survey Camp Epi and a center zone.
Center zones I do really like, and this is across any map, whether it be Storm Point or World's Edge, because of the fact that it gives teams the opportunity to play the game that you know they want to. When you're landing Dome, it's not because you want to play Zone. When you're landing Lava City, it's not because you want to play Zone. When you land Trials, it's not because you want to play Zone. You may have the flexibility to do that based on how it pulls. And in this particular case, as we move on over towards Fragment, it does look like, again, playing center ring is going to be very powerful, but I want to see how teams adapt over the course of these past 2 games where we've now again gone central pull and specifically towards this building heavy area where you can coexist, and see whether they take a different approach.
The approach that I'm thinking, I look immediately towards Vexed at Lava Siphon, who are going to have a lot of information. You have the choke point north of them, but look at the right side. You have the team in Geyser. There's 2 teams in Lava City and Big Mod. You have to make sure that if you are going to find that rotation, you clear out that right side.
That'll be the challenge for many of these teams. Perhaps Vexed can assist on the way in, because their rotation will be a little bit easier, landing dead center of the map. They've already, in fact, gotten the opportunity to scan for where this ring is going, so they know that it's going to be dead center over by Fragment, and have plenty of opportunity to lock in their own position, especially with the Caustic, who is nearly impossible to push. As long as Vex get there early, they're looking good.
The last thing I want to do in Fragment is push a building in which a Caustic has already gas trapped the entirety of. So you're playing Gibby Caustic. Which building do you want in Fragment?
Ooh, that one's tough. I think that you have a lot of options. It really depends on where you think the zone is going first and foremost, but I don't mind any of the spots surrounding the northern corner of Market or just south of Streamer Building. Both of those very tight chokes, and we'll see what Vexed, of course, opt into, as right now it does look like they want to play a little bit more Streamer Building centric.
Taking a look with Kella Gaming, currently 15th overall in the day. They're using the passive to try and determine where they want to go, and Vex knows what they want. They've already found 2 knocks onto Morningstars, and they're going to be able to clean them up. A little insult to industry with the melee going down, and of course Matafe has the Gibraltar heirloom as Morningstars has fallen.
Hits him with the good old war club, and Vexed can feel plenty comfortable now. The bubble now on cooldown from Gibraltar gives them so much safety temporarily, and the Caustic almost permanently, as those traps are now set up along the bottom floor, and Vex should be able to easily navigate fights within this building. Jailings, on the other hand, right next door, have opted into the train station. A bit riskier, a bit more open of a position, but also one where they have a lot more autonomy, being able to peek out on this roof and start to take part in fights that will happen surrounding them over the course of the next 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes.
I've been very impressed with Jailing's ability to call the zones here today. They have nearly guaranteed themselves a position for split 2 LAN, and I feel that they are getting comfortable and just excelling on that team cohesion that we keep talking about. But Aurora finding form, sitting on 2 purples and a gold, benefiting from, dare I say, streamer loot? No, I'm just kidding. Dare I say, no, that's what you want to see. But Dark Veil coming out from Cleave, incoming missile swarm, trying to navigate that. They need to play a little more conservatively because they got a lot of kind of discipline from that, right? This is what we need. Typically, they would not necessarily take this fight to the best of their abilities, but over the past 3 maps, something is changing.
It's changing for the better, for certain. Cleave on the disengage with the wall, managing to escape, but most notably, Sunset forcing the team on high ground to take a quick reset. You're not allowed to push Aurora for free. It's going to take a lot of time and effort, and for many teams, it's simply not going to be worth it. Ascend actually putting up a similar story now that they've got some Watson fences that do send a very similar message to any teams in the immediate vicinity. You don't want to try and push us because it's going to be very annoying to do.
Ascend fencing up that choke point. That is That is something to behold, but it was Game of Drones that was poking towards Aurora and have now found themselves on the landslide, same things. I can only imagine if you're going to take some shots at Aurora with Rondon. Look, we talk about the charge rifle all the time, but this is disgusting. You are looking for the cheesiest angle I have ever seen in my life, and I love this for you.
Game of Drones got to do it. They haven't had the hottest day, just starting to peak up a little bit on World's Edge, but their journey into it has been far from comfortable, and this is their last match day of the regular season. They're sitting in 21st place right now on the border of relegation, and cheese it up, my man, because you need the points.
It's always fun in games when you have a charge rifle in your hand, but the moment someone starts charging you, it gets personal. And now a team is nearby Valk ulting, and it's personal for Cleve.
It certainly is. I believe that's Game of Drones just passing on over from the landslide area, not choosing to walk it through in this tunnel that Aurora did have complete control of. Start a fight actually got landed on, and now they get to try and turn things around, but Lackey goes down. That communication's coming in clutch. Light's got to clutch it, and he doesn't manage to, as Game of Drones from the Valkylt take the fight convincingly against SAF.
Talk about the reaction time that has to come from that, but Aurora is here with vengeance. They are sick of being third-partied. They want to bring that action to you with a beautiful knock on to Torj. What an immense battle from the Titans of Split 1.
My man takes him down in the air. You do still have one member left. So start a fight, get to continue moving on, or rather, Game of Drones get to continue moving on, seeing if they can rat out some points. 16 squads left. 15th is where the placement points really do start kicking in, and Aurora cement themselves in this building with relative ease.
Ooh, Wraith Portal coming out. This is what you like to see, right? We talk about those micro rotations that have now almost turned into more macro rotations for endgame with the doubling of Wraith's Portal. And speaking to the Aurora of old, one of their first compositions, whether it was on Storm Point or World's Edge, they were one of the first teams to break out Wraith, right? Wraith had such an impact on the earlier seasons of ALGS back in the day, I shall say, but now is coming back to fruition. And with the improvements to her kit, I need this.
Wraith went criminally undervalued during our first couple weeks of the split as well. Teams choosing not to run her because she was fun, but she felt weak, and that is absolutely not the case, especially in rings like this, where buildings are so much more present. In metas like this, where charge rifles are constantly aimed at innocent Valkyries just trying to find a position in zone, Wraith can get you to places that other legends simply cannot possibly do, and Vortex make their way in, using the Valk, this time unpunished, but that's going to be the last time this game that anyone gets away with this for free.
And the fact that you bring that up, we talk about the Valk rotations late game. That's why a lot of pros have been electing to utilize Wraith instead of Valk because of the charge rifle, because of, dare I say, the ramparts that we'll later see in North America, just so many of them. I've seen Xset do some disgusting things to eliminate rotations from Valk.
We really have, and this Valk in particular is pretty darn special. Vortex's Vushi has been one of the biggest cornerstones of the team, and I know that people don't really think about that when they think of Valk. You're thinking, oh yeah, well, Seer and Catalyst, they're going to be the really important points. But Vushi is constantly able to find really cheeky angles, position the squad appropriately by using the Valkyrie, and over the course of the split, averages 41% of their team's damage. An incredible amount when you realize that there are two full other people on the team.
Vushi really is him. I know we talk about a lot of the teams that have their fragger on Valk. You think of Ascend, Lufka, you think of Alliance, that's going to be a fact. Typically, they will find, you said, the cheekiest of angles, just positioning yourself to such success, but it's also being able to navigate your team through the sky. And I mean, sometimes the sky could be a drone as well. Let's check in with Kashera.
just constantly scouting out. I do like IGLs that make use of the crypto really frequently because it feels like just the freest way to get the most detailed information possible.
Ooh, little nice check-in as we see the zone continuously moving more towards Fragment and less of Epicenter being included, and V2 holding that northernmost positioning. I think of that and I look towards Bitfix Gaming, and Bitfix has been a real thorn in the side for a lot of our teams here today.
They so often find themselves mirroring other teams on the rotation in, which is that problem, that thorn in people's side that you're talking about, because whenever you survive, Bitfix may very well be rotating in behind you, and looking at the map as it is now, that honestly looks like it's going to be happening again, specifically to V2, who find themselves up on the height right next to Bitfix. The clearest, cleanest, best rotation for Bitfix would have them successfully there, and yet we'll see how it works out as other fights are starting to break out in Fragment, more specifically onto ANC Outplayed, who hold a wonderful position.
Aurora off screen just completely annihilated 2R1C that had their last showing here today, being from Group A, and LCDF has moved into a building as well to find the remnants of a previous fight and trying to anchoring their space here in Fragment.
And Fragment that is increasingly pulling up towards them. Let's see, de France have the benefit that this is going towards that sort of market area in Fragment, and market specifically very difficult to hold down. Vexed opted into streamer building early. They're likely going to have to cross a bridge or use a Valcult to make their way into the ring. J-Links are starting to hold the bridge right next to Vexed, but all focus goes towards now Broken Building and Market as being the most powerful positions in these next two zones.
I feel as if Vex Gaming right now are the loot goblins of Fragment. They're just rolling through all the syringes and shield cells that they have, and the double seer exhibit is absolutely disgusting right now for Train Station. It's how do you approach this? Psycop utilizing Bangalore to the best of their abilities with the Digi threat. You smoke out your opponents, you cover the distance with Digis, and you know, we usually see Digi threats all over the place. They're not in crafting, and I almost feel as if the spawn rate has been nerfed, but it still feels as if when a Bangalore needs a Digi, they get it.
It's something about manifesting your own destiny. You pick Bangalore, and the game does respect it to a level. Now, that's going to be difficult, even with smokes, even with Digis, to take fights like this because of, well, actually that exact cooldown. The bubble goes out, giving Vex the opportunity to peek forward, and again, they are in a position where shotguns are really nice if you want to try and push up onto Vex, who almost lose a member on the retreat.
No, this is going to be really scary. Gaming Gladiators was inside of Train and lost out on 2 of their members. It's just Leogri alive. And they're on the precipice with 12th place coming into today. Vexed Gaming is able to enact all of the judgment on the teams around them. You want to peek me? We'll take it.
Yeah, Tyler playing expertly on that head peek, and you do have to wonder, minute 40 left, Broken Building going to be one of the most powerful positions in this next ring, now revealed on the mini-maps to the upper left. J-Links hold Broken Building right now. Ascend still in zone as well, but Vexed will have to fight with so many other squads for control of this bridge.
Foot Esports, they were 14th on the day and 10th overall in the series for Split 2. They have been eliminated. Gaming Gladiators, another team on the come up, needing to finalize their position for LAN, also eliminated. And Vortex, second overall on the day, coming off a match day number 7 win, are doing everything to take over and get themselves a position in the top 10. Now, that's not necessary, right? They were originally focusing on just making regional finals, and now they're taking it another step.
Things are about to get so much more intense over the next minute. There's 45 seconds until the zone closes. Teams like these are going to have to relocate, and it's a difficult move to make, knowing that there's very little cover. Respawn beacon available as a playable area, but Reply Totem try and just brute force their way past the caustic Gibraltar of Vexed, and they lose one on the way. Sherp goes down, and Vex don't even focus on it. Unlucky, in fact, on a slightly different page from the rest of the team, tries to push forward, finishing that kill, but is going to get quick rezzed by Matafe, as we've got BitFix Gaming, the thorn in the side of so many, starting to push in.
But that was an impeccable reset, utilizing the bubble, placing the Nox gas trap to block the door. But BitFix is going to have to work a little bit harder if they want to get towards Vexed, because now Unlucky is hitting that full reset and is ready to take on. But BitFix has taken to the skies and is rotating forward ahead of Vexed.
And they're going to take this fight up against Totem instead, giving, I hate to say, Vexed another opportunity where Ascends, their chances are running low. An unfortunate end for them as they run face first into 3. But Lecite de France, they reset. Meanwhile, Vex start to push up once again onto Totem, crippled from before, and now in a very difficult spot with the bubble right at their doors. We haven't even seen the defensive bombardment come down yet, but Reply Totem will not live to watch it.
Tyler does have the caustic ult available to them. J-Lings was the team to eliminate Reply Totem. We look at the teams alive. We still have Aurora. We still have Vortex. And we have a disgusting fragment zone. J-Lings is poised to perfection on the right side, utilizing the fences and the interceptor pylon from Watson to take space. They can poke and then they can regen up to 250 HP with the generator before they have to withstand or maybe pop down a new one.
Yeah, they've just gotten such an amazing position. We've seen it for the past 2 rings, honestly. J-Lings have perfectly predicted where they need to end up, and now it's just a matter of holding it. That matter shouldn't even be that difficult, given the fact that they've now got Watson fences around the inside, the generator to protect them from nades. This should be an easy top 2 finish for J-Lings, and I say should be because we've yet to see what Vexed will bring to the table.
Well, thinking about Vexed, I'm also curious what's happening with Aurora and co on the outside of the ring. Vexed is going to have to walk this in across the bridge, and J-Lings will be disciplining them for trying to make this rotation happen. You have to go on the underside, because if you peek your head out, J-Lings is going to say, I'm there. See where Aurora is on the underside of that? There's so much open area, and there's 2 teams kind of to the left of them, and they need to make sure that you push down and go freely, but V2 is making their move.
It's going to be a slow walk up as V2 get punished immediately by ANC outplayed. At this point, even these small moves are not safe to make, and Nags is really punishing BitFix Gaming. Go down, a charge rifle not giving them a chance. ANC outplayed, meeting their fate. 7 squads left.
Circle is closing in, and Aurora is making a play for LCDF and the remnants of V2. But look who's on the far right side. Element 6, they're still going to have to walk up onto that. Vexed can play this area, and they're going to do it really well, being able to utilize the mass traps and play it forward. You can see the defensive bombardment about to come out, but checking with E6, 3rd overall on the day. Kinda has already found some success towards Aurora and members of LCDF, but their attention is split, Dia.
At this point, Element 6 are literally running up against a wall, and in both of 2 different kinds. J-Lings trying to harass Vexed are going to be taken down 2. Matafe and Tyler both falling, and J-Lings know that their job here is done. Very difficult to recover from a push like that, and it's a matter of biding their time, staying safe, not overextending as so many have.
Your Gibby's down, your Caustic down, and Nags wants to double down and make sure that they can finish off of Vex, but it's going to be incredibly challenging to make that happen. But Nags was able to get a fin. So far, just wasting all of the gas traps. It is Tyler who's going to utilize more gas traps and get a reset, but Seer's in the meta, baby. They're not going to let that happen.
Perfectly timed interrupts, and that's from 2 squads as well. J-Lings are watching this like hawks and should be able to finish this off. Actually, very nearly finding themselves in an overextension position, and that's the tough thing about this. But Seer Q cooldown is long, and on the inside, Tyler's still just fine, picking up some of these hopefully, knockdowns and putting himself in a good position. 4 squads left. Every placement point counts, and Matafe no longer forming part of this. I believe we've got that knockdown shield broken, and now it is just a matter of a quick swing. Not unlucky, gonna go down, and Vexed, they're gone as Jailing still continue to reign supreme. Who can actually challenge this squad, Tiff?
You look at what's left, and we've got Element 6. They survived the chaos between LCDF and Aurora, but Jailings is proving to be such a dominating factor. E6 has turned their attention to eliminating Kella Gaming. So once again, Jailings has found themselves in a position to make this a game for them to lose, but E6 has the grav lift. They're taken to the skies, and they are going to rain fire down from above K-Swinny with some significant damage.
He needs another swing, though. In comes Kinda, and that's the first frag. That's the drop from E6 as they recognize weakness, and they capitalize on it. E6 in a 2 versus 1 will take another game today, and they will end it on a win.
I told you I was smiling earlier, and I'm smiling even bigger now. Is it possible to have your face completely break from that? It was played to perfection, and Horizon was the key to that victory. Hi, Rain Day.
Hey, how you doing? Great call, guys. That was a fun one to end it all. And Element 6, certainly you could see it there for a split second, but you could also feel it. They are taking this day. They had a great end, and they had a great steam, kind of picking up steam story throughout this tournament. And that's what you hope to see from a team, getting better and better with each game, figuring out the lobby dia, and then finally finding their way to make their impact.
And we talk about these veteran IGLs. Swinny is one of them, and Swinny opened things up for this squad on Horizon of all picks. We talked about it in reference to Aurora earlier. Horizon isn't the end-all be-all that she used to be, and yet in situations like that, man, is she incredible. Because let's not forget, folks, you can be crouching and avoid seer ult. You can also be in the air, and Horizon had that opportunity. Swinny had that opportunity in the final circle, and what an end it was.
Yeah, Tiff, we're seeing, different metas show up, but also that Horizon element, maybe just a reconstruction of what it's used for. Less go up in the air and hit all your shots like Effect used to do on Alliance with Horizon, but use it more strategically as a movement first ability, not to set you up for damage, but to set you up for better positioning, which K-Swinny is showing us can often win games.
We've seen it throughout the duration of our match series today. You think of specifically this last match, repositioning yourselves where you don't have to try and walk up on a Watson fenced building. You just take to the skies and drop over them. You think back to the last match, they were utilizing it to get high ground on those rocks. Now, granted, Vex was able to cut them down, but it was showing the verticality and the positioning like you mentioned. And you think back to Aurora on Storm Point, utilizing it around Jurassic, yeeting themselves over the fences around Jurassic to try and engage a fight.
Well, storylines all collided here in Game 6 to finish off our match day number 8 in EMEA, A versus C. These are the highlights of that game. It was a lot of stories, possibly having different endings, a few surprise twists. Aurora looked like they could have made something happen in top 5. They ended up getting taken down. J-Links notably performed pretty well across both AC and AB matches. They found a way to do it again today, but Element 6 really stole the show. It was a creeping one, but they certainly start to become our fixture as the day progressed here.
They absolutely did, and the problem with zones like this for so many teams, just whether they are a team that we're focusing on or not, is that you have to cross through these extraordinarily small points in order to succeed, especially when you're crossing the bridge, as teams like Totem tried to, Bitfix tried to, and even Vexed tried to. They were a focus team for sure, but were unable to survive for the long run, making it to top 4 and no further. But J-Lings have this wide open space to play, and they do so absolutely wonderfully, even taking the the chance to swing down, get a little bit risky when they need to, and it made me sweat, but they looked comfortable the whole time.
Well, they're very used to being in these tight situations, especially in these groups. EMEA has kept it close all along, and from match day 6 or 7, only separating the entire lobby between 40 points. That's 2 decent games, and top 1 through 13, 17 points. It was pretty close this time as well. J-Lings thought they had it. Element 6 said, not today, as they swung in. Case Swinney and the squad. Ton of resilience, and also just a ton of, I think, excellence, adapting, bringing in the new member after losing Graceful and saying, that's okay. That's life, Tiff. We just keep on going, and we're going to keep on going to the direction of success.
Direction of success is what all of these teams were looking for, but more in particularly, Element 6 wanted a win on a match day and a 21-point victory, 9 eliminations. J-Lings consistently in the mix as well, but I'm impressed with Kella Gaming, you know, coming in from the Pro League preseason qualifiers, making it towards end game with 8 total points. Not a bad last showing here.
No, not at all. And Vex looked like they would have had a bit of a bigger game, but a decent game still. They kind of hovered around 6 kills, and for a team that has been notoriously about kills, they've also taken the mature approach, reassessed their game at land, saying it's not enough to just have kills. We need to rotate. We need to focus on that. On this back half, for a day that started so well for Reply Totem, didn't end with the same level of success. Have they still maintained a top 10? Probably. A win will usually get that to you. Ascend, have they maintained the first spot? I don't think so. And Gaming Gladiators, what's the story of Hardeki? Will they qualify? Top 20 is their goal, so they have a chance in regional finals, but they've still got some time to go. We'll find out, because guess what? They play tomorrow too. But the series as it stands, after match day 7, will be Element 6 on top. Vex did enough to take second place. Vortex, CGO, and J-Lings Esports tied. But Vortex will get the tiebreaker in third place. J-Lings grab fourth. Ascend, great start. Lost a little steam on World's Edge, and now we'll round out our top 5. But a good showing from V2. Aurora, they've done this before. This is actually Aurora's highest showing, I believe, of the season. I think they've gotten 8th place before. So getting 7th means that maybe this is the right direction, Dia, for this squad as we look now at our bottom 20.
For what it's worth, I think you're absolutely right. Aurora have not had this good of a day in a while, but 2 teams to watch coming into the day were Start a Fight and FUT, sitting now at 10th and 17th respectively over the course of today. And this is not a comfortable position for them. Both of these squads, with the points that they had, needed to be placing top 8 or better to secure their spot, especially given that this is their last match day. Neither of them achieved that. Start a Fight slightly ahead now in these standings, but neither team comfortable, not by a long shot when it comes to playoffs.
And I think they'll be disappointed. I mean, when I talk about Gaming Gladiators there, they won this matchup, A versus C, last time they played it. To place 18th now, that is rough. And for fans of that team, as many of us are around the world, still more story to tell. Hopefully it's a good one. Overall, the season standings for EMEA, we've got Vex Gaming now leading the top over Alliance. Fire Beavers still with Ascend. They play tomorrow one more time, Alliance and Fire Beavers and the KCP Pioneers. J-Lings, I believe this might have been their very last game, but that's a good spot to be in for them. And that means that, I think J-Lings actually might have another one. They might have one more.
Another one.
Yeah,
so
Group
good
C.
for them. They are really pressing that top, guys. So that is very, very exciting. Phoenix, you just stayed in the top 10. So you better perform tomorrow. Horizon Union right there. Let's take a look at the second page, Tiff, and talk about those teams.
Oh, the points are so close. You're talking about Horizon Union just staying in there with 64 points, but Vortex has made their way to 11th place overall with 64 points, tying Horizon Union. So you're talking about a late season push here, and Vortex is doing everything right. We had Start a Fight, Foot Esports as some of our teams to watch, and Foot came into today 10th place overall, tied, and has now slipped a little bit, as well as Gaming Gladiators. But it's Aurora who have pushed a little closer to avoid relegation, Dia.
And this is what it's all about, especially as we drop into the next 10, is that chance to avoid relegation. Passion right at the top, 21st right now, have the opportunity with their games tomorrow to get themselves out of this desperate situation, as do so many others, but time is of the essence, and as of right now, none of these teams are safe, because I've been watching a lot of Challenger Circuit, guys, and those Challenger Circuit teams are looking pretty darn good.
Well, for those Challenger Circuit teams. They got to get to this position, and it's coming up soon. We'll talk about the dates that you can apply and get your team in there. But of course, after the end of the day, we like to highlight a few top performers. May not be the best in your opinion, but for us, they stood out, and that begins our segment of our Monster MVPs. All right, I'm going to start with you, Tiff. Who you got for your Monster Energy MVP?
To no surprise, we had some immense action here today, but one team in particular doubled down and answered the question that we had asked in match day number 7. My MVP nomination is once again going to be Kinda from Element 6, but I'm going to kind of tear it in two because I feel as if K-Swinny, the legendary veteran IGL, as Dia would place it, has enabled Element 6 and this entire team to find the success. He can do it at any point, no matter whether it's on land, remote. We have to start asking ourselves questions here. Kinda 17 from the Challenger Circuit team Nemesis, that French team, found some success, started scrimming with K-Swinny and co, and they were like, hey, this is working. We are performing immensely well. And now you look at the 2 match days and you see everything why. I was watching their scrims and listening to K-Swinny navigate and how they communicate with Kinda. It's perfect. They're like, hey, Kinda, you need to watch our back. And then if something goes wrong, they talk about it. But yeah, that's my MVP nom.
All right, I love that one. Dia, go ahead and give us yours.
I respect it, but I gave them an honorable mention last week, and now I've got to give them the big stage. My MVP, my Monster Energy MVP nomination for this week is going to be Robin from Vortex. Vortex have been on a tear, and coming up through last week, finding themselves in first, the question that we were constantly asking through the broadcast was whether they could replicate that. Robin dealt almost 5,000 damage over the course of the day with a massive damage differential of over 500 not being dealt right back to him. This is a team that relies on information, on synergy, and so often as Vortex play, it is important that they stay on that with the use of their Seer. Robin has very clean communication behind the scenes, and that's why he's my Monster Energy MVP. Randy?
Well, Dia, you got to talk about every player that you and Tiff mentioned, but I also have to add one that I mentioned a lot during today, and that is none other than Unlucky from Vexed. Vexed, very happy to have him, and very lucky to, indeed, I might say so myself, because of the impact that a strong finisher has. Unlucky leading the kill leaderboards in 5th and 6th place, collectively with him and Tyler FPS. This duo means that any fight that Matafe sends them into has more than an even chance of winning. That's right. You do not want to get into an even engagement with them, and they know that. They played to those strengths, but what's making this a deadlier squad for me and why I had to highlight Vex and Unlucky is because they said that can't be it. What happens if we don't take fights? What happens if there's no one to rotate into and we can't get our points from kills? We've got to be better at the macro game and get into positions where we'll win no matter what. And that's why I have to showcase Unlucky there. Congrats to all the teams. Everyone played great today, but those were our 3 for our Monster Energy MVPs. All right, look at this. We're sitting here with another Monster MVP in his own right. It's the legendary K-Swinny, one of the coolest by-one blade finishes I've ever seen. You gave us that moment at LAN. We use it in nearly every intro to our broadcast over the split. So it's great to talk with you. How you doing after today's performance, and how are you feeling about the synergy that your team put on display today?
Hello, thanks. Yeah, it was a really good performance from us today. I don't know, like I'm feeling really good, really confident with the team. We have been working a lot off stream with Kinda, because Kinda is a new player, first experience in Pro League, and I see he got his back-to-back MVP, so I'm really happy for him. And no, I mean, so good so far. I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned the back-to-back MVP, but I was like, K-Swinny is at the center of the entire equation that we are witnessing, and it bodes the difference of what you bring to the team as your IGL skills. And I kind of want to pose a different question. Do you have any advice for maybe some aspiring in-game leaders out there that are looking to take competitive to the next level?
I don't know. I just learn every day, every single day that I'm streaming and I'm playing real and playing rank. I'm just learning every time. So just keep learning.
I like it.
I mean, it makes sense. Get as many reps in as you can. And this season has also been one where teams are experimenting quite a bit. I noticed you guys pulled out the Horizon last game, and this is something that has changed in what it actually does between seasons. So how do you feel about Horizon right now? And can we expect any other, perhaps, legends that you're thinking about trying out in future?
Yeah, we think about trying out Newcastle after watching Adams play it, and the way they play it, it's so good. But I don't know. I think we have like kind of an identity crisis. I don't know if it's the word. In Stormpoint, we are really bad in Stormpoint. In World Edge, we are popping off because we can take space. We have like one of the best loot on the map, and we just play our game. But Stormpoint has been rough for us, so we're probably gonna have to play Horizon, I feel like, in Stormpoint now. And yeah, probably Newcastle as well.
Well, I want to get back to that Horizon element because we noticed that you're playing it. I've critiqued Horizon a little bit. I think for some teams early on in the season when it was more heavily Catalyst and there was more of a consistent meta as who's good now, Horizon teams kind of were a little late to that. And now I feel like Horizon, especially in your hands, K-Swinny, and a couple other players' hands, is actually working really well. Talk to me why you like Horizon, just on World's Edge or in general in this meta right now.
Just the space Horizon give to us in Edge is like, I don't know, like it's unbelievable. It's really stuck right now in EU for some reason. I don't know, it's like 18 squad zone 4 every time. So every time someone is vacuuming and stuff like that, we can just Horizon ult, like clean wipe and get back. And we have really good loot from Skyway Stras, so we just use it correctly. I feel like, yeah, if you want to play Horizon, you have to be on Edge and you just need to use it correctly.
So it's a matter of not using it correctly for the teams who are maybe not performing as good as you are as well. I want to just lean into one more topic. I know this is something that's probably on everyone's minds. You had the season starting with Graceful. He had to go take care of some family things, and kudos to him. What a great guy on and in the game. That's a lot of leadership to lose. How has it been? Has there been any struggle adjusting with Kinda coming into the team? What's that been like just on your side? How did you feel about that? I mean, how are you able to?
I mean, first of all, I need to say like that was good with Grateful. That was just unfortunate situation, but we need to bring light on Kinda because he's coming from CC. I gotta say, you don't know shit about like the professional world, right? But we have been taking time off live, off stream to like watching VOD and stuff like that, what he can do better. He's working a lot and he's doing it perfectly. And so, yeah, like Slayers as well. We have been going through a lot of things, and Slayers, like no one is talking about him, but he's like one of the best support in the game. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just happy to having like a coach like Sineska and the teammate I have right now. Just really happy.
Well, it certainly feels like you all are ramping up at the right time. Congratulations on everything that you've been able to put together, K-Swinny, and any message you want to say to your fans or people who support E6 right now before we let you go.
Just thanks to our community, our ultras, like they are behind us every time, even when we struggle really hard. So thanks for them. They never leave. They every time support us. Thanks to the E6 staff who are behind us as well. Thanks to Trustmasters. Thanks to my teammate to be like really calm, even if I'm molding a lot, and to take on themselves and just keep learning every time and trusting me on my call. And yeah, it's thank you to like cheering for us every time as well.
Amazing stuff, K-Swinny. Thanks for the interview and congratulations on the win today.
Thank you.
Lovely accent. Always fun to talk to K-Swinny. We don't do it too often on the show, but it's great to get that in-depth look at how the transitions with adding Kinda to the roster has helped us and helped their team move into the next phase. All right, we love to get these series at the end wrapped up with something that everyone can enjoy. And of course, that's what's in your pack, thanks to WD Black. Today, our focus, Tiff and Dia, is the Nemesis. But I want to ask you a specific form of what I want to know about the Nemesis is any changes. Do you expect some changes for Season 17? Tiff, and then Dia, you go ahead. What would you like to see, if anything, changed or kept the same about the Nemesis?
Ooh, I'm thinking about the Nemesis, and if I'm not mistaken, the base mag size is 20. So I think that's healthy for the weapon. And with the addition of Nemesis to the ground, energy ammo is everywhere. They pulled the Volt out of the crafter, and now it's on the floor, and energy weapons are just finding a lot of success, but it's the ramp up speed that allows you to deal significant damage when you're not missing, and our pro players are not missing, Dia.
No, they're not at all. And I mean, you ask about changes, things that the Nemesis can be, I suppose, accentuated by. Very powerful weapon, and the thing that really makes it so is that ramp up speed, where when charged, it has the fastest time to kill. Nemesis has been reigning supreme in this season, and if anything, I'd expect it to take sort of the L-Star treatment with heating up mechanic that the L-Star has, and making that an energy weapon thing, taking it so that the Nemesis has to be a little bit more paced, so that you have to navigate how much you're charging it and when you're doing so in order to make it very challenging to upkeep it 100% all the time.
Well, you're watching this on a VOD, or if you're watching it live, leave a comment or chat about what you think should happen to the Nemesis in Season 17. We want to hear your thoughts, but that's, of course, a big thanks to WD Black. That was what's in your pack. All right, final thoughts here to end the day. Check it out. I mean, what is performance across EMEA? We had a lot of stories developing, and the big one was Group C needs to perform. We did see some teams make an effort. Aurora jumped into 7th, although not maybe what they hoped. It still leaves a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel if they can build on that for tomorrow. And, of course, some of these teams that we thought might be not flukes, but can they do it again? VCGO. They did. They got a great score, top 5. V2 got in there, and Element 6, of course, take the cake. Tiff, what were your final roundabout thoughts on how Match Day A went for EMEA?
My final thoughts are every team from Group C that is on the cusp of solidifying themselves inside the top 10. They are doing what they need to do, and to watch that, you already brought up Vortex, Element 6 in particular, and those teams doing what they need is just so exciting to witness. But then it begs the question of Group B that's going to have the final thoughts tomorrow, and I am going to be on my sofa watching nervously as these teams duke it out.
Me too. Dia, how are you feeling after a great day in EMEA? Closing thoughts on your takeaways.
Well, you know me. I love commentating Apex Legends. I'm feeling pretty good. This is a solid day for me. But I think that my thoughts on the region can be put in the sense, much like Tiff said, of I'm really enjoying watching teams that are still finding their swing, whether they be in the relegation zone or not. Vortex is the premier example, who again wowed me with a top 3 finish, proving that they really can tango. It ain't no fluke. But Aurora coming up as well is something that I'd like to keep my eyes on. Cleve, for example, finished the day with the most kills in the entire lobby. 13 kills over the course of today's games, and really crushed it. So keep your eyes out for Aurora coming into tomorrow, because they may be on the rocks, but that doesn't mean they can't still party.
Oh, I love it. And some would say being, I don't know, on the rocks and partying kind of goes together, but we're not going to get into that one on this broadcast as well. Thank you, too, so much for hanging out with us. We had a great time today, and we will see you for the next one. Or actually, for both of you, we'll see you in North America, which is coming up very, very soon. So stay tuned, everybody, because yes, that's right. In just a little bit under an hour, or a little over an hour, we are going to have North America. It is a important day all around, because Group C starts again, their first of 2 match days in a row to try to qualify. Teams like Furia, they're going to be going back to back. TSM, wow, Hal's already tweeted out what he thinks. He thinks he'll be doing a watch party for LAN. Did that just take the pressure off of them? And maybe they'll play a little better today, or does it really seem like we'll be missing last LAN's winners at the next one? Split 2 has held so many questions in store and given us storylines we could not have imagined, but we'll find out the actual answers in just a little bit. So grab some lunch, grab some dinner, grab some breakfast, depending on where you are. I guess you have to be in Australia for that one, and join us in about an hour and 20. What a great day. Thank you to our competitors. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes, our broadcast, our crew who puts these shows on and who has set us up for a great finale. My name's been Rainday, and make sure to follow us on @PlayApexEsports on Twitter and Play Apex Esports on YouTube and Twitch to keep up with all of our VODs, live content, and tweets about upcoming games and schedules. That has been it for EMEA. Great match day 8. We'll see you for North America. And remember, never give up, never stop gaming. We'll see you in a bit.